That is jobless behavior. It's taken me way too long to finish this goddamn book. What? How many fucking letters there are in the French language. Like, there are just so many words that have so many extra letters, and for what? For what? Oh my god, this man pissed me off. What is happening? What is happening in this book? Hi, I'm Percy. Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? Happy fall, happy spooky season to all those who celebrate. If you're new here, I'm a published author with a degree in performing arts, and I love storytelling. Anything stories is what we're here for, whether it be movies, whether it be books, it's mostly books, or anything in between. And today's a book day, but not just any book day. We're doing classic monster books in honor of the Hoa 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 season. And I want to see if I can answer the question, will reading classic books make me a better writer? Logically, you'd think the answer would be yes, but I'm not sure. And I don't know why I'm not sure, and that's where the vibes come in. We're gonna try to figure out why is that the case. We all know classics are classics for a reason. They're the originator of tropes, they're the originator of lore, they're the originator of everything that we consume in media today. Archetypes and stereotypes are there for a reason. It's because there's no such thing as an original story. And I'm a very firm believer that to be a better writer, you have to read as much as you can. You have to read everything, ingest, and be open to receiving inspiration kind of from anywhere, and be open to other people's artistic processes and artistic interpretations of things. And so the reason this kind of came about is because my best friend in the whole wide world bought this. This is my copy, but she bought it to rebind. If you don't know what this is the Odyssey, but translated by Emily Wilson, who is the first female historian to translate the Odyssey. And it was incredibly well acclaimed. It adds a lot of nuance, a lot of context that has been lost throughout history, especially concerning women characters, you know, whores, slaves, witches, things of that nature. And I have been wanting to read this since 2018, which is when it came out. It's been on my TBR, but my friend finally bought it, and she bought it to rebind. Well, to read and to rebind, because she got into bookbinding recently. And it just kind of reminded me, oh yeah, no, I did want to read this. I wanted to go back. I've never read the Odyssey cover to cover, and I'm just curious. That's not what we're doing today, but this was the inspiration for the series originally. And originally I was gonna do this one, the Odyssey, start off with the one that inspired it all. But then I heard on the wind, and I was like, oh, I got a better idea. And so, today, this week, what we're reading is Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mary Shelley Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, and H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man. So, in honor of the spooky season, I thought it would be really appropriate to read the classic monster books and kind of start off this series of can reading classics make me a better writer? And the reason why I picked these three books, like, specifically, one, I couldn't think of any other ones. I genuinely couldn't when it came to like genuine classic monster books. I was like, is there a mummy book? No, that's a movie. Like, yes, there's Dracula. There's also oh, I just remembered, there's the original lesbian vampires. Hold on. Carmilla. I forgot about this. Hold on. We might be adding to our editing purse here. We weren't able to get Carmilla. Anyway, circling back, I picked these books because they were the quintessential monster books that came to mind, that kind of set the tropes and the lore and everything that we know about these archetypal characters that we associate with Halloween, right? And I just thought it'd be fun. Not only that, I have tried to read Dracula 3 separate times, and I like it. I like Dracula. I don't know why I can't finish it. Maybe because the audiobook is 18 hours. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know why this audiobook is 18 hours. I'll be completely honest with you. But, and not only did I think it'd just, like, be fun for the spooky season, but also Dracula and Frankenstein are the first epistolary novels I ever read, personally. And I love the idea of epistolary novels, the idea of reading the story only through the context that kind of surrounds it is really interesting to me, and it tickles my brain, and it's something that I'm trying to incorporate into my current novel, my light witch novel that still doesn't have a working name, that I'm writing with you guys. If you don't know, on this channel, on this exact channel, we are documenting my process writing my second novel from beginning to end, from draft, not from conception unfortunately because I'd already thought of it before you guys, but from draft to writing to editing to querying to publishing. It is all gonna be documented on this channel, so drop a follow if that interests you. But in that novel, I want to incorporate diary entries in between the main chapters to kind of give context around the story from another character's point of view that really tickles my brain. And so why not revisit the first books that inspired me to do so? What can I learn from them while also staying in like the spooky vibes, you know? Plus I've just never read them. I was supposed to have read Frankenstein in high school. I read half of it. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I skimmed through it. Victor's a little bitch and it pissed me off. Dracula I've started 3 times. I've never finished, and I have never even touched The Invisible Man. And these all are books that I should like, that should really give my brain something to chew on, so I'm really excited to dive into it. And now I can't give up because we're here. I can't. I'm giving myself a week to do this. And so with all that being said, we are starting with Dracula by Bram Stoker. It is the longest one, again, 18 hours long, and it's the one that I've just been trying to tackle, so starting off with a win I think will be really good for this experiment. And I'm excited to take you on the journey being a layman jumping into classics for the first time, because I don't have any sort of literary, like, I don't have like any in-depth literary education under my belt. I took like AP Lit in high school, but that was in high school and I'm 28, so that was 10 years ago. And I don't remember what we talked about. So like everything I know about classic literature is very stuff I've read online, stuff I've gleaned from movies. So being a true layman and jumping into this world of classics that other people are so well versed in just really excites me. I'm excited to like dig my teeth, my fangs if you will, into these books and to really like talk to you guys about it. They're classics for a reason, and we're gonna find out what that reason is. Okay, so forgive. Why do I look like that? I beg of you to forgive the lighting because I have no idea why I look like this. Anyway, I am an hour and 43 minutes in. I'm an hour and 43 minutes in, so that's about 9%. I'm 9% of the way through the book. In the first 2 hours is Jonathan Harker's journal. So this is like the epistolary part of Dracula. I am getting ready to do some sewing, so forgive the scene change, but like look how big this is. Look how big this fabric is. But anyway, I want to get some sewing done while my body isn't hurting like crazy, so forgive as I move and set up my thing while I talk to you. But yeah, so I'm only 9% of the way in, and I love Dracula. I hate to say it. I hate to be that girl. I would have been a Dracula's bride. I hate that about me. I know I do. There's just something about it. It's just weird. And this is absolutely one of the reasons why classic literature is so important and so studied and so relevant even now, is being able to see yourself in characters that are so far removed from who you are as a person. And we haven't even gotten to the Dracula's bride yet, by the way. We're only 9% in. But Jonathan Harkness is a solicitor who is coming to help Dracula buy property in London. He's like his real estate agent, or like his accountant, or like a mix of the two. I actually don't know what a solicitor is, but he's there and he's writing in his journal, and he realizes that he's trapped very early on. This book starts off with a bang. What I find really interesting is the reason why he's writing in his journal is it starts off as like a daily habit of just like documenting his travels. Like, oh, this weird thing happened at the inn that I stayed in. They're acting like a little odd. This woman gave me a rosary, even though that's not part of my religion, but it feels so unkind to not take it, she said, for your mother and put it on him. Like little moments like that he's documenting because he thinks it's odd. He's just kind of reflecting. It is just like a daily log. And then as he realizes that he gets to Dracula's castle and he's like, oh, no one else lives here. It's just me and the Count. And I'm trapped. Like, I'm stuck. My stuff is missing. I'm locked in. I don't know what to do. And so he starts writing to, hoping that Mina, his fiance, I believe, or his wife, I think it's his fiance, unsure yet, but he's writing hoping that if something were to happen to him, she will find it. And that's the setup of why we're reading his journals, and who he's writing to, which I think is really important in an epistolary. Why are you documenting this? Who are you telling it to? And he's telling it to, one, to himself, and two, to Mina, because he doesn't say like to you. He says, I hope Mina will find this should anything happen to me. I write my letters to Mina in shorthand, etc, etc, stuff like that. But yeah, so that's the setup. That's where we are, just to like fill you in. But that's my foot pedal. I just realized I have to lift an entire sewing machine by myself, and as a girl with chronic pain, my mind tells me no, but my body tells me yes. Hold on. I did it all on my own. Okay, but yeah, so he is like trapped. The reason why I picked up the camera is because we just read my favorite moment of the first section of Dracula, which is when Jonathan Harkness looks out his window. He's doing his nightly journaling. He hears something and he looks out his window, and Dracula digs his little fingers and his toes and he scampers down the side of the castle like a lizard. And he has his cape flowing behind him as the giant bat wings. He's like, ah! It's so insane. It's so, you can feel that Jonathan is like, oh my god, this is Satan. This is a demon from hell. And I love it. And I think what's really interesting and why I'm having so much fun is because Dracula, while yes, he is just like a vampire, a villain, he's Dracula. You know him. We all know him. He's also still like a nerdy little guy. He just wants to know about like English culture and about London, and he's like, and he wants to fit in. And like, we know it's because he's a vampire and he wants to fit in so he can like feed and exist and live and just live in a new place. But like, if I were Jonathan, I'd be a little entranced. I'd be a little curious, you know? He's just like a little charming. He like answers all the questions. He's intelligent. He wants to talk. And he's like never-endingly curious. And we know it's because he has like ulterior motives. But like part of me is like, he's just a guy. He's just a guy, you know? So there's that. And that's kind of why I picked up the camera, because I know I talked a lot about nothing, but I just wanted to talk about how like I really like Dracula. I think he's a funky little guy. I love that he scurries down the side of the building like a lizard. I think that's so cool, and I think this is a me problem. And I do want to preface this saying I'm not a dark girly, like a dark romance girly. I'm not. That's not my vibe usually. But then I hear Dracula being mysterious and edgy and charming and talking about the dangers of the castle and that the memories still live in the walls and they're gonna get you. And I'm like, oh, hi. I hate this about me. I hate this. It reminds me a lot of, if you've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in season 1, I believe there's an episode where Xander turns into Xander, oh my god, Xander. There's an episode where Xander turns like evil bad boy, and I was like, oh, hi Xander. And my partner was like, girl, stop it, horny bonk. But yeah, no, I don't know. All this to say is I really like Dracula so far. He's really interesting. I like that he's kind of like a nerdy little guy, all the while being incredibly dangerous, and all the while like Jonathan is fearing for his life. And like, again, I don't know what it is. If I can put it into words, like, I will tell you. But there's something about how we hear and we feel Jonathan's fear. He thinks he's going to die. He has to write letters as if he's left the castle, as if he's made it to his destination, as if he's almost home, while being trapped against his will. Like, he is terrified, and he genuinely is, and it's kind of unsettling the first time you read it. And you know Dracula's the one doing it to him, but then they sit and talk, and I'm like, but he's just a guy. He's just a curious little fella, you know? So it's just really, really interesting. I don't know what that is, like this charisma, this charm. And, you know, we're seeing all the tropes of this dark, romantic, gothic ambiance. It's just really putting me in the mood for spook. I'm trying to thread my needle, by the way. I'm not just like bonking my sewing machine. I'm trying to thread my needle. But yeah, I'm really liking it so far. And again, I know I like Dracula. I know I do. I know that I love this whole spooky vibe, creepy lizard man vibe. I really like it, so why do I keep not finishing it? Hopefully we can finish it. Like I said, 9% of the way through, we're making good progress. I'll see you next time something really fun happens. I realized I never read you the description of Dracula because I just assumed everyone knows Dracula. But I'm gonna read it anyway. Bram Stoker's 1897 novel, Dracula, may not be the first vampire novel, but it is certainly the most famous. These scenarios couldn't be more different than the conservative Victorian era during which the book was published. Though critically praised from the start as being ahead of its time, it was not an immediate bestseller. The story is told through a series of letters recounting a young Jonathan Harker, a lawyer. He's a lawyer! I figured it out. All on my own. A lawyer who visits Count Dracula to arrange a real estate transaction and realizes before long that he's been taken hostage there. Harker escapes after a series of horrifying events, and Dracula makes it his mission to go after the young lawyer and his lovely fiancée Mina and Mina's friend. I was right about the fiancé. And with the assistance of an old teacher, Professor Abraham Van Helsing, the tide turns against Dracula, with Van Helsing chasing the Count back to his Transylvania castle, where the ultimate battle takes place. So if you didn't know the actual story of Dracula, that's the summary. And we just got to like, oh, he's trapped. And I think the brides are coming up soon, like the brides of Dracula. I just like them. I just do. I love my like angry, hungry, gothic queens. Even though Dracula's kind of mean to them. He's mean to them because, again, we're not there yet. This is just from what I remember. I believe it's because they try to eat Jonathan and Dracula's like, no, he's mine. And personally, I think Jonathan could have been the first Dracula husband, but we'll see if that memory is still correct when we get there. Back to reading. Okay, so it is the next day. How's it going? So I am, let me check. I think I got to 14% last night, maybe more. 18% last night in Dracula, which is 3 hours and 19 minutes. Not bad. I'm only doing a check-in because it's the next day, new day, new location, and I just wanted to like finalize my thoughts from yesterday, that I was right, that I would be a Dracula bride. I don't know why, I just know that about me, and that's not meant to be a compliment. But yeah, Dracula is a little gay about Jonathan Harkness being Harker's. He is a little gay about Jonathan Harker, and it's like, no, he's mine, you can't have him. Which I thought was very funny, and also kind of horrific, because after Jonathan like encounters the brides for the first time, he hears Dracula throw them a sack that has a crying, half suffocated baby in it, which they then disappear with. And you can fill in the blanks there. It is actually very horrifying. I love it. Not in a good way. It's just the fact, I love it in the sense that the way that these words can make me feel, I really like. That being said, we have left Jonathan Harker's diary. We went all the way through to like the final day of his final letter that he had already written, that Dracula delivered for him, and he said he was going to escape, and that's the last we heard of him. Right, we are now in the letters of Mina, his fiance, her friend Lisa, and then 2 other men that I have no idea who they are. I thought one of them was Lisa's fiance, but I don't know if that's the case. And I know the audiobook and this is a full cast, so there are different voices per character, which is very helpful. But when you don't catch the name, it's just, you get lost. And I made the joke to my partner, I wish I recorded it, that yeah, if I find that if I stop paying attention to an audiobook, the one downside is if my mind wanders for even a second, I come back and they're talking about pirates murdering someone. And I shit you not, in the second letter from the second gentleman, he talks about pirates murdering someone. And I was like, what is going on? Oh my god, I wish I was recording when that moment happened. It was so weird. But yeah, I was following along a lot really easily with Mina and her girlfriend, and then but when these 2 gentlemen came in, I'm really confused and lost, and I'm gonna have to go back and listen to them. But yeah, that's where we are. I don't know how many more check-ins I'm going to do just because it is such a long book. If I give myself the leeway to keep checking in whenever I feel something, this video is gonna be 5 hours long, and I'm not editing a 5-hour long video. Okay, I just finished my Descendants 3 hours and 18-minute video. I don't want another long one. I don't mind the long one, but not anything more than 3 hours right now. So, also a little peek behind the curtain. I have had to edit this Descendants video 3 separate times because it keeps triggering the copyright system on YouTube. A second here, a second there, a second too long. So, 3rd time's the try. I'm exporting it for the final for real time. So I just have to sit and wait for that to go, and I'm just babying it to make sure it goes. And so that means I am just going to put on Dracula and play on my little Switch and just rest. I had pottery this morning. I'm in a pottery class, thanks for asking. And pottery is very physical, so I am tired. I am very tired. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, by the way. I do kind of want to make a video on that and like my fibro journey and how I got diagnosed, because it is kind of funky and it might help someone else. But just so my friends know, hi, I am officially diagnosed with fibromyalgia. It's no longer a mystery. But that means that I am so tired and my body is so heavy and I just want to rest. So yeah, I'm gonna tuck in for some reading and some Disney Dreamlight Valley, and then I'm gonna do some more reading and then probably some crochet, because this is my job today, is to read and to make sure this video freaking uploads. I totally forgot. I'm doing this video for educational purposes, not just for me to talk my thoughts out. No, well, something I wanted to talk to you guys about. Now that we are out of Jonathan's diary, we are bouncing around to a few different people's POV, right? The thing that I've really appreciated and that I have filed away, I really need a gimbal. My hand is cramping with this tripod. And the thing that I've like filed away that I want to incorporate into my writing is the why is so clear, at least for Jonathan, Mina, and Lisa. The first 3 characters that we come across. The other 2 gentlemen, again, I lost my train of thought. I lost my train of thought while listening to them, so I'm a little bit more confused. But I think that just highlights how important it is to have a why. Why are these characters writing these letters, these diary entries, these telegrams? Because that influences the story not in the sense of it's a vehicle for the story, but the context of the story. Why are these things being written to begin with? And now saying it out loud, obviously it sounds incredibly obvious, but it's something that I guess I didn't consider. Like, I had internal reasons as to why Briar is writing these letters. If you don't know who Briar is, she is one of the main characters in novel 2, in my Fairy Witch novel. Fairy Witch, that's not correct. In my Light Witch novel, she's one of the characters, and the story is told from Clementine. She's the witch. It's told from her point of view, but in between the chapters, we have diary entries from Briar. And the reason why I wanted them there is because I wanted them to kind of work as foils for one another, just kind of influencing this idea of like choice and why it's so important and why we make life-changing choices, and being able to like play off of that was kind of this idea of like womanhood almost, and so that was why I wanted those diary entries there. But now it's like, oh, let's add another layer. Let's give Briar a really solid reason why she's writing the letters to begin with. And I think I know what it is, which I'll share with you guys in my next writing vlog. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, it just makes the epistolary part so much more impactful, I believe, if the characters have a very solid why. And that's what I'm finding here, is that they have that. Which I like, because we could just say that like, oh, Jonathan's just writing because he's always written in his diary. But a stronger choice is he thinks he's gonna die and he's praying that his fiance finds these. That's a much stronger choice. So yeah, so I just wanted to get those thoughts out there. I'm really tired and I have a lot of brain fog, so I really hope I got everything out that I wanted to. If not, editing Percy's probably gonna come in and say something. But yeah, I'm 18% of the way through the book, and hopefully I can finish it the next 2 days. We shall see. But yeah, for now, job is rest. Job is baby computer. Job is relax. I'm so tired. I just hurt so bad. So I'm just gonna stop talking and we're gonna go. Okay, bye. Okay, this is such a long book. I am only 24% of the way in. I knew I said I wasn't gonna check in until like the end. But I just felt so compelled because I like Mina so much, and especially in classic literature, especially written by a man, finding a woman character who you just empathize with and like and can see yourself in is not super common. And I don't fully see myself in Mina. I mean, I'm not gonna say that, especially at only 24% of the way in, but she has moments where I'm like, oh, this is my girlfriend. Like, we're chill, man. And I just really appreciate that. So to catch you guys up, Jonathan is missing. We saw his last journal entry of he's planning to escape, and no one has heard anything from him. We're in Mina's diary now, which she's keeping the diary because she wants to help Jonathan because he's a lawyer now. She's like, if I learn shorthand, if I learn the habits that women journalists have, then I can help him. I can take notes for him. I can transcribe things for him. And I think that's very like sweet. And I know that you can make the argument that like a woman being seen in a subservient role, but as someone who very much, I enjoy taking care of my partner because my partner takes care of me. That's what this feels like now. And I think it's because we've seen from Jonathan's point of view, and we've seen how much that he talks about how he cares about her. All he could think about was her when his life was in danger. He could only think, oh, how I'm leaving her and how tragic that is. So there's something very, very sweet there, and I just really like it. I think it's sweet. I love that she's intelligent. I love that she wants to write to like better herself, one, to help Jonathan, but also for her own like betterment. Is very sweet. And she's like given herself this duty of writing in her journal for that intention. I just like her. And so we've seen her and Lucy like go to the shore to have like a girls trip, I think to celebrate Lucy's engagement. I might be wrong about that. They might just be going just to hang out, as people in the past did. They just went to the shore. But so they're hanging out. Lucy is having like dream walking moments, which is absolutely because of Dracula. He's absolutely doing some sort of mind control on her, which is just cool. And I think I know that because I read it in high school. So I've tried to read this book multiple times. I read it in high school with my very first Kindle, but with the old Kindles, the navigation wasn't as intuitive, and I think I skipped ahead and I read something about her being mind controlled. I believe, I could be completely wrong, she could be sleepwalking for another reason. Anyway, Mina and Lucy, they're at the shore. Lucy's sleepwalking. I think it's because Dracula's mind controlling her, which I think is really cool. Her mom is sick, so like, and she's sicker than normal. So is Dracula drinking from her in her sleep? We don't know. Is he drinking from Lucy? We don't know. But in her journal, she's also kept excerpts from local events just to keep record of everything. And again, being influenced by wanting to document things like a journalist, and also because she's worried about Jonathan, and she's like tracking like weather because he's supposed to meet her there and she hasn't heard from him. And she's like, oh, thank God he wasn't on the thank God he wasn't in the storm that just happened, but also he could have been, I don't know. So again, the reason why she has all this information is really cool. I really like it. It's very solid. But she is like talking to older men. A ship came on shore where there was just the captain dead, his arm damn near ripped off. He's tied to the helm, and the rope is so tight it's like digging down to the bone. Ugh, this is a gory book and I really like it. But they find him, they have a burial for him. That's why we find him at the shore. And that ship is the Demeter, which I didn't know. The movie that came out, what was it, like last October, the Demeter, I didn't know that was from Dracula. I thought it was just like a vampire story, so I might watch that. But yeah, I might watch that. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, so we have like the journal entries from the crew of the Demeter and how they're picked off one by one until only the captain's left, and he refuses to leave the helm because if he goes down into the depths he's gonna get killed, so he just stays at the helm for days. Wild. And my hands are dirty because I did pottery today. I'm actually in the process of reclaiming clay right now. I'll show you. I'm reclaiming clay right now, so that's why I'm on the floor, so my hands are dirty. But so yeah, so we have all this information, and I just want to talk about how much I just like Mina and how she talks about this. Really, I just really like her. Like she looks after her friend. Again, Lucy's sleepwalking. She like looks after her. She wakes up every time. She changes her back into her sleepwear, puts her back to bed to make sure that she doesn't wake up somewhere or fall off a cliff or anything, which is just very sweet. And the way that she talks about all these like events, which she's just smart, and I just like her. And that was kind of the main point of this clip. Also, the thing that like really made me pull out the camera was the fact that she says she's thinking about like feminism and progressiveness, and how, you know, oh, one day there's going to be a time where men and women should see each other asleep before an engagement and before the acceptance, so like before they're married. One day that might happen, and she's kind of scandalized by that, and then she goes, but in the same vein, that one day women will propose to men in that same progressiveness, you know, one day we'll get there, and how wonderful that'll be, and how fantastic those women will make it. And I'm like, I don't know, and I don't know. I'm not a historian, and this is the problem with classic literature, is I don't know the exact context surrounding the book. Like, this book is touted as being ahead of its time, so was that an incredibly progressive idea, or is it the instance of it's slightly staggered? So like for Bram Stoker, was that an accepted thing already, and he's writing slightly in the past where that was a new idea, the idea of a woman proposing, or seeing each other asleep before engagement. You know what I mean? Like, is it here and Bram's here, or is Bram here and the idea is here? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, where in the context do these things exist? I don't know. And I think that's why classic literature can feel so daunting and so separated from us in the modern day, so to say. And not having that context, that some things can seem a little weird, a little silly, but you know, we make assumptions, and I'll get all my thoughts at the very end about this exactly, but I just wanted to kind of check in about that very specifically because Mina talked about one day women and men will see each other sleeping before they're engaged and before an acceptance is made. Hearing that, I was like, okay, I have to talk about this. I have to talk about Mina. I have to talk about these like progressive ideas and like the context of history around classic literature. I just think it's fun. I just think it's really fun. It's really interesting. And all this to say, I like Mina. I think the idea of things that are scandalous to her that she hopes to be true in the future, I think she hopes to be true in the future. Having that be true now is just kind of a really funny, odd experience. It just makes me feel a little fluttery on the inside. And also the balance that this book strikes with having these sweet moments of like tenderness with Mina and Lucy, Mina and Jonathan thinking of each other, talking about each other, Lucy and her fiance, I don't remember the name of, these like moments of like romance and tenderness partnered with like this really grotesque horror that's happening just kind of off to the side. It was really fun. I understand why this book is a classic, although I will say I do tune out. I'm not going to pretend that I know every word and the meaning of every word that comes across my ears. There are moments where I'm like, I'm just going to tune out and I have the general idea of what's going on, but that's part of this. That is part of the experience. So I'm going to keep going. Hopefully I am either checking in at the final battle. That is the goal, to check in at the final battle. And at the end. Okay. Hi, I'm back. I literally framed it so you could be in it, so you could see how pretty you are. Anyway, so it's been a hot minute. It's been a minute since I picked up the camera. Last week we checked in was at like the 18% mark, 17% mark. I finished the book. And it took me a week straight to finish this book. It's so dense. There's so many words. Dear God. And it was 18 hours, and it's like, oh, that's a long book. Okay. If you hear snoring, I'm house sitting / dog sitting at my in-laws' house. That's Big Lady. You've met my cat. She's Little Lady. So if you hear snoring, that's what it is. Anyway, so yeah, so I finished it. I actually ended up listening a lot during my pottery studio sessions. So I am currently taking a pottery class. So I have class Monday morning. I actually just got back. I just washed off all the clay and changed, but don't kick me. But so I just got back, but my wub, he bought me the open studio session pass, so I can go whenever the studio's open. So I go like 4 or 5 times a week, right? I'm making a lot of things. But so that's when I was listening, and so I'm not gonna pull up my camera in open studio to convey my thoughts, but I wish I had my camera, because the amount of times I am there working on the wheel and I just go by myself was way too many. But yeah, this book kind of gagged me a lot, actually. There were a lot of moments where I know. There were a lot of moments where I was just like shocked. So let's catch up. When we left off, we had met Mina and we had met Lucy, and I talked about how much I liked Mina and how much I liked Lucy, and that is true. And I don't remember if I talked about Lucy getting sick, but she was slowly getting sick. She was slowly getting sick, and she ends up passing away, unfortunately. And through Lucy, we end up meeting the 3 gentlemen: Andrew, which is her fiance, a man from Texas who I do not remember the name of right now, he's Texas, and Stuart, who's a doctor. All 3 of them had proposed to her, and so we meet them through her, and with her dying, all three of them were actually there trying to help save her by donating blood. And through Stewart, we actually end up meeting his old professor, Professor Van Helsing. And so that's our cast. We have Jonathan and Mina, Lucy, the three men, and then Van Helsing, right? Lucy ends up passing away, unfortunately, and all the men that are around her. Mina and Jonathan had gone off to get married. Jonathan does come back, he is safe, but because of that, and because he didn't make it home, he washed up somewhere and they had to put him in the hospital. And because he was writing notes to Mina, they were able to like find Mina, and she went to go be with him, nurse him back to health, and get married and have their honeymoon. So they're off doing that. Lucy's getting sick, right? And all these men are trying to take care of her because they love her, and they keep having to donate blood. They're like, where is it going? She's gotten 4 transfusions in the last week from 4 full healthy big men. Where the hell is the blood going? We know where it's going. And her mother, who was sick, who they're like trying to hide Lucy's sickness from, her mother ends up passing away, and very shortly after that, partially I think the heartbreak and because of how weak she was, Lucy ends up passing away. Okay. And through this trauma, like, our men are now bonded, except for Andrew. I don't remember Andrew being there at the very end. I don't know where he went, but that's like the gist of it. And then Mina comes back, they come back for the funeral, and Van Helsing is like, I think I know what happened. And sure enough, Lucy comes back like a vampire. She comes back as a vampire, and they are all so heartbroken. They're like, no, my sweet Lucy, my Madam Lucy, her soul is gone. And it's just, oh my god, it's so good. It's so dramatic, and I love it. This book is very dramatic and romantic and syrupy, and I love it. I'm not gonna read it anytime soon, but I love it. It's just so syrupy. It's so good. But so they have to kill Lucy. They end up cutting off her head, and this kind of trauma bonds them all together. And I think that's when Mina and Jonathan show up, if my memory serves me correctly. That's when they show up. Now we have this ragtag team of a lawyer, his wife, a doctor, a man from Texas, and a professor. And they're like, we're gonna hunt down Dracula. Goddamn. Cool, go off. I find it so interesting that Van Helsing, you hear the name Van Helsing, vampire slayer, and you think this big buff man with a crossbow with a stake in it, you know what I mean? And it's just a professor with a thick accent, and he calls everyone madam or sir or friend, like Jonathan, friend. Rude. Sorry. Okay, so Big Lady like loves to watch mystery channels, so they always have the Hallmark mystery channel going for her, and there's a show called The Haunted Wedding for Halloween. Oh, that's so fun. Anyway, so sorry, but so yeah. And so like Jonathan, it's friend Jonathan, and Mina is Madam Mina. Like, he's very sweet. He reminds me of just like a very sweet old man, and he's very loving, and he cares for these people the way that like an uncle or a grandfather would. Like, these people are now very important to him because of how trauma bonded they are. So I just think that's really interesting that like the stereotype that has persisted has been like this big burly man. But to wrap up the story, so we can talk about all my thoughts, what happens is now Mina is starting to show signs of illness, and they're like, we have to hunt down Dracula. Mina is dying, basically. He bit her. He's not like actively eating her the way he was Lucy, but he did bite her and curse her, essentially. Like, he stole a lot of her blood, and now like the vampiric curse is like trying to grab hold of her. And he can like see through her eyes at night, basically. Like, there's a psychic connection between them, right? And so much so that at dawn and at twilight, Mina is like, Dr. Van Helsing, hypnotize me, and I'm going to try to look into Dracula's mind to see where he is and what can happen. And that's kind of how the climax starts to happen. how they end up killing Dracula. This, I need you to know this is not a SparkNotes version. There's so much that happens in this book. I'm just getting like the main points so we could talk about the story. But how they end up killing Dracula is, it's a heist. Like, the genres and the tropes that happen in this book is insane. But now they're like planning a heist, and they're trying to find, because he came all the way to London from Transylvania, right? And they're like, okay, well, he wants to move here, he wants a new location to kind of take over, but he has to go back to the castle, right? And so they try to intercept him at the castle, they fail, it doesn't work, and they're like, okay, well, where is he going now? And they find out the new place where he's going, and so they're like, okay, well, we have to intercept him, we have to find the box, the coffin that he's in. And yeah, it's a heist as they try to find him. They do end up finding him, and the final epic battle that is toted, that was on the front of the book, it's a race against the clock. And so like the final heist, it's like a race against the clock, because Mina is starting to do better, and they know that the box is being transported by, they say gypsy, I'm gonna say Romani, by some Romani people that Dracula has employed. And so they're like on a horse and carriage situation, and our boys are on horses, and they're racing to kind of intercept them before he can like rise, because the sun is setting. And Mina and Professor are like here waiting, and you see them coming this way, you see them coming this way, and our men have guns because of the Texas man. I hate to say it, but the Texas man was like, we should bring Winchesters just in case, and they're like, you're so right, bestie. And so they do. But the Romani also have guns, unfortunately, and so they get there and everyone pulls their guns, and shots go off, and Jonathan rips open the lid, stabs him, while I think Van Helsing cuts the head off, and they watch Dracula turn to dust. Which it was pretty epic, but it wasn't like a fight, you know what I mean? It was a heist, which I like a lot more. I don't think I would have believed it if they had like gotten into a fight. I kind of like this ticking time bomb of, he's going to wake up, we need to do it now. I really like that. Unfortunately, Texas man gets shot and killed, and he has like a moment with him at the very end where he's like, I will rest peacefully knowing that Mina is safe, because everyone loves Mina. I love Mina so much. I love Mina. I can rest easy knowing that she is safe and that we've done it, right? And the last chapter is, I don't remember who it's from, if it's Van Helsing or Stuart or Jonathan, but the last one is them like coming together, and it's 7 years later, and Jonathan and Mina have a son that they've named after Texas man, and I'm so sad I don't remember his name. I'm so sorry, Texas. And they have a son that they named after him, and like it's the anniversary of the killing of Dracula, and I think they visit the castle just to make sure, you know what I mean, to kind of reminisce. And okay, cool, safe, done, it's past, and they've moved on with their lives. And I'm sure there are details that I got wrong and that I'm remembering wrong, and there are like important beats that I missed, but these are like, it's a very quick story. I say 12 minutes into this, this is a very quick like story rundown, so you can get like the major plot points in. When I say this book is dense, it is dense, but it's good. I quite like it. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I wasn't trying to speed read it in a week. If I had taken more time, and like the entire month of October, I think is a more appropriate way to read it, unless you're really used to and good at reading dense classic literature, just saying. And there were times where I'm like, oh, I can feel my mind wandering because I don't know what's going on, and then I'd snap back into it and I'm like, okay, I got the gist of it. I'm here. We solved it. So I'm sure there's stuff I got wrong. But no, I liked it. It's very interesting, and as a writer, I think what I got from it especially was with the why the letters are being written down. I know I mentioned that beforehand, but it is so prevalent that the why influences how the letters are written, how the diary entries are written. you know, a lot of it is written as they're trying to go to sleep, you know. Like I remember Jonathan being like, Mina has come home and she's fallen asleep peacefully, and I'm watching her, but I can't bring myself to fall asleep. It won't come. And so I decided to sit and write down my thoughts. And at the end, he's like, I can feel sleep coming, so farewell for now. And I just really appreciated that. Like, it felt like we were reading found literature. And so that is something that I really want to focus in on in my own, like, epistolary writing, because I have about 3 stories that have epistolary elements to them, if they're not full epistolary novels. So I really like that. I really honed in on that. Oh my god, the romance and the drama were fantastic. And when I say romance, I also mean the romance between the men, in the sense of the romantic language that is being used, like this vulnerable, emotional, deep understanding of friendship and community that forms between all of them. This group of people is just so good. It's so interesting to me. So I was just a very huge fan of that. And I did want to take a moment to talk about Mina, because I think personally Mina is the star of the book. Not in the sense of, oh, I just like Mina, she's just cool. No, I mean that she is I think that any Dracula retelling needs to have a fantastic Mina, because she is the heart of the story. She is the main character of the story. And I find it so interesting that, like, when you think of Dracula, if you've only ever heard it on the periphery, you think of Van Helsing. Maybe you think of Jonathan, but you think of Van Helsing and Dracula. And you think of the men of the story, because they're the ones who are doing the action, they're the ones doing the killing, they're the one riding on horseback with their guns drawn. But Mina's the one being attacked. It's Mina's best friend who died, who is the reason why they're even doing this. Mina's the one being hunted. And I think that it's just so interesting how important she is as a character. Without Mina, there is no story. And yet she is often forgotten in the discussion, at least that I've seen. And I'm sure people who have studied this book in more depth would disagree with that. But from what I've seen in the very layman, very surface of the water situation, Mina just isn't talked about enough. And she's, in my opinion, she is the main character besides Dracula, which is just so interesting. And so I just really wanted to point that out. And I don't know if it's like women being erased in literature or what, but like, I think that she was written really well. I was worried going into this, having Lucy and Mina be these 2 prominent female characters, because in classic literature, there are, you know, they can shit on women a little bit, not all of them, but in older, okay, let me rephrase. I think I was worried because in classic literature, in history as a whole, women aren't always treated the best or portrayed the best or written the best, you know. And so having a book that is so influential and has so many tropes and is one of the classic horror novels, to have a woman that is so well written, period appropriately well written, and so important to the plot, just was really refreshing to see. Like, I wasn't expecting to see that, and that was just really exciting to me. I think that is everything I wanted to say about Dracula and the things that I'm taking into my own writing. I did want to say, I did make the joke that I know this about me, I would be a Dracula bride, and I hate to say it, but I would. And near the end of the book, Professor Van Helsing is talking with Mina and Jonathan, and he's talking about his theories about Dracula, about why he is the way he is and why he's hunting down Mina and like being a problem, basically, right? And he ends up saying that Dracula is really immature and childish and almost has the mind of a child, which I felt so goddamn mother freaking attacked, because that tracks. that tracks. My dating history is not the best. It's not the best. And I am one of those girls that like immature men, but who have hyperfixations can get to me, you know. Less so now because I have a partner who I'm very much devoted to, so it's much less so now, but it is a pattern that I've noticed myself like with characters and with my dating history. Now that I have like a healthy partner who I adore, being able to talk out with him my dating history and like just noticing these trends that I've had in the past is just so interesting, and I felt so fucking attacked. But yeah, it tracks and I hate it. Anyway, you know, goddamn. I hated it so much. But yeah, I think those are all my thoughts on Dracula. I did end up finding, hold on, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. So I did end up finding The Last Voyage of the Demeter, but only here at Wub's house, because I don't have Paramount and I don't have Showtime at my house, and so they have it, so I'm gonna watch it because I'm so curious. I'm just so curious. I'm just curious. Like I saw the trailers for this and then I didn't know it was a Dracula story, and then I never heard anything about it ever again. So in the spirit of watching Dracula as a treat, now that I'm done, I'm going to watch this movie, I'm going to eat some snacks, and I'm gonna paint my nails, and I'm gonna paint it this like funky not bronze, but like reddy green color. And then we're gonna read Frankenstein. But my brain is mush after finishing Dracula, so I need a palate cleanser. I need something to Also, I know I said I wanted to watch this, but this is a horror movie, so I made sure that I was gonna watch it during the day. Okay? Yeah, and we'll check back in once my brain is a little bit more washed and flushed and less mush, and we'll talk about Frankenstein. Oh, I can't understand a goddamn thing they're saying. I need subtitles. Alright, well, I'll have to rewind. Ooh, so spooky. Ooh. Oh, it's done? Oh, cool. Yeah, okay, I understand why that movie didn't do well. It's boring. Like, I wasn't gonna do like a full review, and I'm still not. It's not worth it. It's just boring. I literally started playing Dreamlight Valley because I was just so bored. Sorry, I'm saving. Yeah. It's hard to make a movie where Dracula's the villain, where you know everyone dies. I see that now. And that, like, makes sense once you say it out loud and you think about it, because yeah, you know everyone has to die, and you know this isn't where Dracula dies, so it's just a bummer the entire time. And like, I didn't care about any of the characters because there's too much like animosity in the beginning. Like, no one likes each other. There's like a bit of racism thrown in. Like, the only one who likes her main character is a kid. And no one else likes him either because he's black or because he helped a woman that was stowed away on board. But yeah, no, they all die. Our main character, Clement, Clemens doesn't die. But now it ends with him being like, I'm gonna send him back to hell. And I'm like, no, you're not. That's Jonathan's job and Van Helsing's job. That's not your job. I thought it was gonna be like he ends up meeting with Van Helsing, but no, like they have a shot of like a silhouette from the side of like a hat and something with the thing, because there's a thing about knocking on the wood of the ship and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, they're gonna be like a coincidence and it's Van Helsing. And he's like, oh, we can do it together. And it's not, it was Dracula kind of fucking with him. That was my favorite part of the movie. Dracula shows up at the very end to just kind of fuck with him, and he's knocking with his cane, making sound, and he comes up behind him and scares him, and he's just freaking out, just kind of driving him insane. I like that. It just needed a little more oomph. A little more oomph. The thing that I think, well, it's really interesting because watching this directly after reading Dracula and seeing the contrast, it's why the story of Dracula works and this movie doesn't, is because of the romance. And I don't mean like the romantic romance, I mean the romantic nature of the story. That it's sensual, it's vulnerable, and not just between, you know, the couples that are in the story, you know, that is part of it. You know, they love each other very dearly. And not the Dracula brides, because they're also sensual in their own way, but more the care that the characters have for one another and the vulnerability and the trauma that has bonded all of them, because it's very, very bare, this connection that they have, because they've seen a demon from hell, you know what I mean? Doing that, it forms a bond. So like that capital R romance of it helps. And I don't know if I'm using, I don't know if there's a better word for romance and romantic, because I'm talking about like the era and the style, not the act, or the feeling. So I just like, not the act or the feeling. And so I just wonder if that genre of romance was missing from this story, because I think that's integral to a vampire horror story. You need a little bit of sensuality and a little bit of romance, capital R romance, for it to work. Because if not, it's just a goddamn downer. It's just sad. And I wanted a fun time. Like, I wanted Dracula kind of like descending from the rafters and snatching people, you know, like I wanted a horror, but I didn't want something boring. Damn, that sucked. That sucks. It put the dog to sleep. Like, that's how boring it was. But it made me appreciate the book all the more. And it made me really want a true like HBO miniseries of Dracula, where like episode 1, and you could, because like the book itself kind of falls into these segments, these chapters, these episodes. And I think it'd be a really interesting adaptation of like episode 1, it's Harkness, episode 2, it's Mina, and you know, we're ending off episode 1 not knowing what happened to Jonathan. Episode 2, we're seeing like the impact of Mina not knowing where her fiance is, and Lucy falling ill for some reason. Episode 3 could be a short version of the Voyage of the Demeter. Like, I think that'd be really cool. Like, you see what I mean? Like, it breaks up, the story breaks up itself as if it's meant to be a short mini series, and I don't know why that hasn't been done yet, because there is something there, and it makes me sad that like the Voyage of the Demeter didn't do well, because that means I think less people are going to be prone to doing a Dracula series, especially because Dracula has been done so many times. I've seen the Dracula from the 90s. I saw that movie a long time ago. Whoops, brother walking around, and he's just looking. You can just hear me talk about vampires, and now I'm embarrassed. I am house sitting, but I'm not here alone. Whoops, brother is here as well. He's helping, and Whoop is also here when he's not at work. So anyway, it makes me sad because I think it could be done very well if you lean into Mina being the main character and lean into the romance of it all, because vampires, romance, and sensuality go hand in hand in hand, just because of like the taboo nature of it all. Like you think vampires, you think taboo, and that is because of the book Dracula. So I think that was interesting. I think that was a fun dive into Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I am glad that I have read it finally. It only took me 4 tries. And am I gonna read it again anytime soon? No, but maybe in a few years I'll take like an entire month and just sit and read a little bit here, a little bit there. I think I could get even more out of it by doing that, but that's not gonna happen anytime soon. It melted my brain. That being said, I think from Dracula I learned to have a solid why as to why our characters are writing, and letting that influence the style of writing. Lady she's a loud girl. But yeah, like the style of writing and having that influence the voice of what is being told, not just what is being told, which again sounds like it should be pretty self-explanatory, you would think. But I think that attention to detail is the thing that can slip through the cracks when it comes to writing anything with an epistolary-esque style, because you can get, or at least I can get, so caught up in the stylistic choice of a letter, of a diary entry, of a news article, that we forget of the why, or I forget the why. So yeah, that was fun. But next, where's my phone? Hold on. All right, I found my phone, and you know me, I love to hello, wee, I love doing that. Okay, but now we are going to start. Ooh, okay, should we start The Invisible Man or Frankenstein? The Invisible Man is shorter and there's someone waiting for it. I think that's why I want to start it, but I kind of want to read Frankenstein. But I've read Frankenstein. Okay, no, let's do The Invisible Man. 1, because someone's waiting for it. But 2, because I've read Dracula, have not read Invisible Man. I've read Frankenstein, but I have not read Camilla, and so we can go in that order. I think that's fun. Doing read, not read, etc., etc. So let's start with The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Once a brilliant scientist, Griffin has been gradually consumed by his research. When he finally achieves his goal, becoming completely invisible, the final result is his departure from humanity. He feels no remorse in using his invisibility to gratify his increasing desires. As he gradually loses his mind, it's hard to determine if it's a result of his chemical concoction or a simple continuation of his moral decline. At a time when science fiction was depicting what wonders the future would hold, H.G. Wells was one of the first writers to explore the dark side of science and to portray how easily mortal men can be corrupted when tempted by seemingly unlimited power. First published in 1897, The Invisible Man helped establish Wells as one of the first and best writers of science fiction, notable for its sheer invention, suspense, and psychological nuance. The Invisible Man continues to enthrall science fiction fans today. So yeah, I've never read it. I've known about it and I know some things, but again, it's all things that have like trickled down throughout the years and has the tropes that have persisted throughout the years, and like the information that you get on the periphery by just existing in a literary space. So that being said, my nails are finally dry. I'm probably gonna go and start crocheting. I might go lay down for a little bit because my leg is really hurting, and then I'll probably get some crocheting done, and then I'll read, and I'll check in once I have like a coherent thought, you know, like does something make me feel anything? Do I like it? Do I know that I hate it right away? You know, what I think of the language. We'll see. That's usually like the 10% mark. I usually have some sort of thoughts. So I'll see you then. I'm leaving the puppy in the frame. Baby. Hi. I always try to put her in the frame and then she turns around and goes to sleep. So, but, so I am 12% of the way through Invisible Man. It's the next day, by the way. I was going to read yesterday and then I made the mistake of laying down and my body went, we're done for the day at 3 in the afternoon. Fatigue is no joke. But no, so as you saw, I was cutting fabric. It's so pretty. I'm cutting fabric because I'm making a dress to go see Taylor Swift. My best friend got us tickets to go see it in New Orleans. She was lucky enough to be selected for the Capital One pre-sale. So we got cheap tickets and everything else went to the trip. But that's not important here. I pulled up the camera because I wanted to talk about the Invisible Man, okay? So I lost my angle. I had to change my battery. Again, if there are any awkward cuts, no, there's not. Oh, fuck my back. But, yeah, so I'm 12% of the way through the Invisible Man, and I've cut the fabric, like I said, and I was planning on, because this is my plan for the week, is to spend the week just removing the sequins from, like, the seam allowance. So about that much on all the pieces that need to be attached. But after spending like an hour cutting out the pattern, I'm gonna keep holding this up, it's just so pretty. After about an hour cutting, I was like, I don't want to deal with the sequins because it is plastic and I do want to dispose of it like as ethically as possible, or just save it and use it for something else and just make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong place, right? Anyway, if you are interested in seeing me make my outfit for Taylor Swift, I am making a separate video just about this and about, I think I might do a second video vlogging the whole experience just because it's my channel and I can do what I want. But that was my plan, so I moved on to a different craft. So I'm making little sunflower keychains while I listen. And I know I said I was gonna wait until like, oh wait, I'll pick up the camera once I feel something. I feel something. It's so odd. So I think I know the story of the Invisible Man more. I was talking so loudly, dear God. I think I know the story of the Invisible Man better than I realized. I had forgotten that I had watched a movie version of the Invisible Man with Webb's parents, usually for like Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays. Whoever the person of honor is gets to pick a movie, and they always pick old movies. And so we watched like a really old version of the Invisible Man, and I didn't remember, and I think I might have fallen asleep while we were watching, honestly. But I know a lot of like the main beats, I think. I don't know. So I have expectations going to this book more than I thought I did. Because I'm like pretty sure he like sexually assaults someone. Pretty sure. Or like Peeping Tom, because that's like the biggest trope with the Invisible Man. Anyway, what made me want to pick up the camera is, so he's come to an inn. The stranger has come to an inn, and there's only one bed. Sorry. No, he's come to an inn and he's being odd. And like the innkeeper is excited that he's there because like she doesn't get much business during winter. So she's like, oh nice, business, I need to make sure, and he like pays well, I need to make sure that he's taken care of. And I love that the first part of this book is just people are frustrated with him because he doesn't follow social cues. Like he's just kind of rude and people want to talk because we're human and we're social, and like the innkeeper wants to just like talk to him just because like, hey, how are you, how's it going? And he's like, fuck you, no. And she's like, eh. And then like the clock repairman was like, a clock repairman came in to fix his grandfather clock because it was broken, and he comes in and he starts messing with it, and he's like doing it intentionally very slowly because it's like this strange man and he wants to like find an excuse to talk to him and like just to chat, and the guy's like, I know that you're taking up time, just recalibrate it and leave. Like, he says what's wrong with it, so he's a smart man supposedly. So he's like, you just need to fix this, like get on with it and leave. And the guy's like, okay, my bad, sorry. So that's really interesting. And again, with the cursory knowledge I know of the Invisible Man, which is probably more than I remember, I think he's like meant to be going insane because of the invisibility has like made him go crazy, like amplified all the worst parts of him type beat. And he's not like meant to be like a hero, you know. So I thought that was interesting. And but the thing, 5 minutes into this clip, the thing that made me pick up the camera was the fact that someone comes to the inn and they have a dog, and the dog ends up biting him. It's not the repairman, it's someone else, like another maintenance man, I believe. I think that they said what it is, but I didn't know what, you know, that thing that happens when books say something and you don't fully know what the meaning of that word is, and so your brain just kind of glosses over it, waiting for context clues to fill in the missing information. It was kind of like that. Mailman, I believe. That's what makes sense, because they're delivering the parcels of like all of his research equipment and stuff that he's like demanding get there sooner. They're delivering it, and either the mailman or someone talking to the mailman had a dog. Doesn't super matter. The Invisible Man gets bit and bites him in the hand, and so he rips the glove, like rips, and he covers it and runs. And they're talking at the bar later. The clock repairman, the mailman, the clock repairman's friend he doesn't work there, but he goes there, and I think his wife works in like the post office, because they're talking about like, oh, like you can look into it, and she's like, no, but she's also kind of curious. But they're talking at the bar, you know, after the incident happened. It only took a couple seconds. No, it bit his leg, sorry. So the dog bites him, and he sees, and the guy said, I'm so tired, the dog bites him, and the guy says that he saw where he got bit, like into the pant leg, and that it was black as night, and that's why this man is so weird. He's black. I solved it. And they're like, but what about his nose? Like, his nose is peeing, because even though he has the hat, the glasses, and he's like a mummied up handkerchief situation, they think that they can see his nose. I think it's just like part of the wrapping. I don't know why it's pink, but it's pink. And they're like, but we can see his nose and it's pink. And they obviously don't know what a mixed race person is, because they're like, he's an abomination. He's a mixed race, and that's why he's so ashamed. He came out wrong. He's all splotchy. That's what it is. I solved it. And I'm like, and one of them, another guy at the bar, is like, oh, I've seen that before. I'm assuming talking about vitiligo, but the fact that they're like, it's an abomination, this mixed man who came out wrong. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's so funny. Not in like a funny haha way, but you know what I mean. Like, that's really funny, because they're also like being portrayed as, even though our mystery man is being portrayed as like mean, like they're still kind of being portrayed as being rude and like gossipy, and that like gross and gossipy type situation. No one seems like a good person except for the innkeeper. Not like good person, but like, you know what I mean. But yeah, so they're being all gossipy, and I just thought that was so funny. And like, reading classic novels, you expect some sort of, you expect the era to bleed in to the novel. Again, our media is a time capsule of our society, right? Especially science fiction, especially horror and science fiction, I think are some of the most in-depth looks into society at the time, because romance, good healthy romance that makes you swoon, transcends the ages. Romance stories that we still look to today that make us swoon transcend the ages. And sure, there are like social norms and social faux pas that are not correct nowadays, but like the peaks, the great things about it still transcend to these days, and that's why Shakespeare is so popular and still taught in schools, because his stories, the drama, the romance, the tragedy are things that we can all relate to today, right? The things that scare us change from day to day. It's why we're seeing such an influx of horror movies about AI, because AI is the big hot button topic for the past year or so, and it's just getting worse. And the same way that we saw like robots like in the 50s, I want to say, like robots and space travel and aliens, because xenophobia, because history, now we're seeing an influx of AI and computers taking over, and we've seen that for the past like 10 years or so. But I think differentiating robots are taking over and AI is taking over are two very different things. And that's what we see a lot of right now. And I just find that very interesting. And then sci-fi is always just a commentary on society. It just is. And I can tell that. Am I boring you? Yes, you're so boring. Anyway, all that to say, it's just, that moment just took me back, that they're like, it's an abomination. He came out wrong. Again, funny in a not ha-ha way. And yeah, so I'm excited to continue this novel. I'm excited to see what it tells me, because again, I'm reading these with the intention of learning something new of how to be a better writer. So what is H.G. Wells going to teach us? If anything, he did, because there's a short bio at the beginning of the book, if anything, he did make me feel very secure in wanting to be an author and also do other things with my life, because apparently he was part of a peace organization, and he advised, or not advised, but like talked to Churchill and Stalin? I don't remember. But he talked to them, and the only reason why he stopped doing that is because when World War II happened, he lost faith in humanity and refused to evacuate from his house as the bombings were happening. And that's where he died, because he's a stubborn motherfucker. I respect it. But yeah, so if anything, there's that. If I can't find anything else in this novel, there's that you can do so much more while also being an author, which I think is cool. So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll see if I'm right about the Invisible Man tropes. Cause like, what other tropes are there with the Invisible Man? The peeping Tom, and the like, you become so invisible you're gonna die type thing, which could be linked to him going mad and dying, because I think the threat is that he's going to die. Like the madness sets in first and then death, and that's why he's like so eager to reverse it. So I think those are the two tropes that I know of, and we'll see what other ones persist. Okay, bye. I'll pick you up once I feel something. Okay, it's been 2 seconds. I haven't even finished reclining my chair yet. But Mrs. Hall is the innkeeper, right? Sorry if I'm like really bad at names. It takes me a while to remember names. I remember occupations and I remember other stuff first. I'm just really bad at remembering names. But Mrs. Hall is the innkeeper, right? And she, so the stranger told her that his job, he was an experimental investigator, and that's why it was so important that he got all of his belongings. An experimental investigator, right? And so we're hearing the gossip around the village, you know, because he's so strange. He only comes out at night. He's kind of rude to everyone. His temper's off the walls, what have you. And so people are asking Ms. Hall about him, right? And when asked what his occupation was, she's like, oh, an experimental investigator. And when they ask her what that is, she goes, oh, well, of course, highly educated people know exactly what that is, but it's really important. Mrs. Hall? Oh my god, a woman after my own heart. That's so funny. That's what I would do. Oh, well, of course, anyone who knows knows. Like, obviously, he invents things. He discovers things. You know what I mean? Like, just some bullshit answer. And oh my god. Okay, sorry. Back to everything. Goodbye. I'm in a lot of pain and I'm really fatigued, so I'm like fully flat out in a recliner. You have to live with it. But I didn't expect for this book to make me feel something so soon. It's 2 minutes later. All I've done, I made this. Like, it's literally 2 minutes later. There's a doctor in the village called Mr. Cuss who has a big fascination with our stranger, right? Because he heard about the bottles and he's like, oh, I don't have that many bottles. And he heard that he is injured and he goes, oh, I'm a doctor, I know about injuries. So he goes to pay him a visit, right? With like a fake, my right shoulder is the one that hurts, but I'm right-handed, and that was dumb of me to hold the camera with that. My entire right side hurts, my right shoulder, my right hip, my right leg. Anyway, but he like makes up it like a nurse funding advisory. I think what it is that he is asking for money, like a GoFundMe, to be able to afford a nurse for the village, I think, because he's going and asking, and he talks about you know, would the stranger be able to participate, and looking for an excuse to like, hey, your injuries, do you want me to take a look? You know what I mean? And they get to talking and they're talking about a prescription, right? About how the doctor got prescribed something, or he prescribed something. The prescription ends up in the fire and the stranger is just like messing with him. And the reason I bring it up is because he throws it in the fire and the doctor sees that there's no hand, there's no glove, there's no hand, and he's like, that's odd, that's suspicious. And he says, you know, there's no hand, and the stranger goes, oh, there's not? You don't see a hand? And which is something I would do. And the doctor's like, no, there's no hand. And he can see down the sleeve, and he's like, well, if you have no hand, like, what's holding your arm up? And he's like, are you sure you don't see anything? And he's like, holds up the sleeve so he can look into the sleeve. And as he's holding it up for him, he just licks him on the nose, and the doctor runs out screaming. That's hilarious. That's so funny. And I know he's being an asshole. I know he's like messing with him, but like I would do that. Oh my god, I absolutely would. That's so funny. You don't have a hand. I don't? That's so funny. Anyway, I needed to call that out. I loved it. Again, seeing yourself in classic literature. Am I gonna regret saying that if he comes out to be a rapist? Maybe. Who knows? We shall see. Only time will tell. I'm in a lot of pain. I am now 28% of the way through, and my brain is starting to go a little mush. I had to go back 3 chapters because I was like, I haven't listened to a damn thing. But he has shown, oh, I do want to make a clarification. The bar is actually in the Airbnb. The bar is actually in the B&B that he's staying at, and that's where they're all talking about it all the time. Also just because it's odd. But, and he has shown himself in a dramatic flurry to be a bit of an asshole, because they were starting to be assholes to him. Everyone's just kind of an asshole in this story. So, that's where we are. Where we are so far. Whoa, almost knocked it over again. Okay, hold on. I forgot. The TV's on again. I am 22% of the way into this book so far, which isn't bad. Not nearly as far as I wanted to be on Thursday. I wanted to have already started Frankenstein by this point, but this book, I should have seen this coming honestly, given that I'm just not in the habit of reading classical literature enough, so it can get kind of mind melty, and that's totally fine. That's nothing to do with anything. It's just, it's important to mention because it is the reality, and I think it's something that scares a lot of people from reading classical novels. But yeah, so I'm actually 20% of the way through the book, sorry. But I was over halfway reading this book, and I actually had to go back and reread because the first time I read it, listening 1.5 speed while I was throwing pottery, and it just wasn't a good pottery day, and I ended up flopping everything. I couldn't throw a pot to save my life. I did end up throwing 2 things, but I'm not super happy with them, and I might end up squishing them, but it was that kind of day. And I just remember at one point I looked up and I was like, I have no idea what these bitches are talking about. What's going on? And so I was like, okay, I have to go back and reread. So I went back to chapter 4, Mr. Cuss Interviews a Stranger. I'm now starting chapter 7. These chapters are fairly short. Because also, I was like, is it just me or is this book really funny? Because it is. Like, I know it's meant to be like a sci-fi, the darker side of sci-fi, like a horror. It's just funny. He's just a funny asshole, honestly. And I understand like how this is horrifying. I understand the context of like, if you've never seen The Invisible Man before, like that genuinely is very horrifying. But we've seen hundreds of renditions of The Invisible Man. The lighting here is awful. Why am I talking at this angle? But we have seen hundreds of renditions of The Invisible Man for a multitude of reasons. And so it's not horror for me, as it wouldn't be for I think a lot of people. It's just funny, and it's given me a few good chuckles, you know? And not only that, like at one point the Halls, Mr. and Mrs. Hall, the innkeepers, they like, the vicar gets robbed, like the vicar's house gets robbed, and they're talking about it at the bar that's in the inn, not like the local bar, but the bar that's in the inn. They're talking about it, and Mr. Hall goes to look for another beer in the parlor, which they're running out to the Invisible Man, and the door's open, so he just goes in and gets the thing that he's looking for, and he realizes, oh, he's not in here. That's weird. He's always in here because it's not nighttime. He's always in here. It's like early morning, like they're restocking beers. They're not drinking beers, like restocking beers, I think. And it's like, oh, that's really odd. And Mrs. Hall comes in, and like the bed is cold and all the clothes are there, and they're like, where is he? And they had just heard about like the vicarage being robbed, so they're like, oh no, our invisible man, our stranger has robbed the vicar. Oh god, like this ungodly man who doesn't even dress up for Sundays, not let alone go to church. So they're having this realization, and the invisible man is naked, and I think he's just in the room naked, or he like left naked to go do something. He's coming back, and he literally goes, look over there, and then runs behind them and shuts the door. It's so funny. It's just so funny. And so that's kind of my takeaway, and I like remembering what I read later on in the book, the parts that did kind of stick when I was trying to throw pots. I just remember other moments just being like in that same vein of silly and funny, and that's not what I expected this book to be. He is just kind of an asshole, but like me too, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just interesting. My headphones are like just falling off, so I'm gonna take that as my cue to go back to crocheting sunflowers and back to my book. I was going to, just for full transparency, I was going to cut the sequins off of the seam allowances for my fabric, but then it took so long for us to vacuum up the sequins yesterday that I I'm not allowed to cut it in the living room anymore. I say not allowed, like I am allowed to, like, well, he's not gonna tell me no, he is just gonna vacuum up again, but I feel bad doing it, so I'm saying I'm not allowed, but I'm going to put in that, I'm putting a limitation on myself, because we also don't want Big Lady to eat the sequins, and she does like her treats at night, and she eats her treats off the ground at night, and so we don't want her to eat the sequins either. So I just have to find like a safe way to cut the sequins that's easy to clean up, because again, we don't want this going into, you know, into the animals, we don't want this going into the waterways, stuff like that. So you will see the sparkly fabric again, just not right now. Right now we're doing flowers. Back to the Invisible Man being an asshole.
You will not.
Oh, okay, good night, baby. Return early, return lone, and like always, pink. Yay. Invisible Man, he's done. I don't know if I liked it. I don't think it's bad. Here's the thing. So I don't think it was bad by any means. I actually think it was very funny. I think it was really well written. I thought it was interesting. And I liked the way that H.G. Wells went about describing the Invisible Man and how he ended up to be, basically. Because we basically follow the Invisible Man starting from right after he becomes invisible to when he dies. He dies at the end. Like we talked about earlier, the Invisible Man always has to die at the end, or he's on the brink of death, right? That's just one of the tropes of being invisible for some reason. Was not a peeping Tom. Was not gross. Did not assault anyone. Don't know why that is so intrinsically tied to like the fable of the Invisible Man. Never showed up. Which I say that with such disregard, but I am actually like, hold on. I say that very lightly, but I am actually very grateful that he doesn't assault anyone. Just saying. It's just weird to work yourself up to be like, okay, I'm ready for whenever this is gonna happen, and then it never happens. But yeah, so so we follow like his last few days being alive, basically. He comes to an inn, he scares the people, he has a bunch of like violent tantrum like behavior outbursts, and then he like goes to multiple people for help. One robs him, one tries to help him, everyone's in his business, and he causes a muck, and then he gets shot and then he dies, and that's it. Again, I thought it was very funny. It was a very funny book. He's just such a smart ass. So he is an asshole, period. They did tell us his name. Griffin is the last name. I do not remember his first name, because for most of the book he's just the Invisible Man. Halfway through we learn his name. My nail broke, but it broke way down here, and so I can't cut it, so it still hurts, so now I have a fun band-aid. But no, so for halfway through the book we learn that his name is something Griffin. I'm gonna check that. Kent is like his college friend who ends up going to ask for help. And he's like, it's me, Griffin. I want to say it's Andrew Griffin. Not the movie. The movie from 2020 is a 7.1 on IMDb. Good for you. Novelle, por favor. Romance. Como que romance? What? Why am I in Google Shopping? Oh my god, I feel old. How did I get here? No. What? I feel so old. Oh my god. I'm just looking for his name. Okay, not the Ralph Ellison version. The Ralph Ellison version is about a black man. The narrator of The Invisible Man is a nameless young black man who moves in the 20th century United States where reality is surreal and who can only survive through pretense. Because the people he encounters see only my surroundings themselves or victims of their imagination. He's effectively invisible. That is so sad. That's not what I'm looking for. Not Ralph Ellison. Not Ralph Ellison. The original Invisible Man. Although the Ralph Ellison one does sound very good. But it also sounds too big for my little brain. It's Griffin. Okay, that's it. That's all I needed. I just needed to verify his name to make sure I wasn't stupid. I'm not. Anyway, whole tangent. But yeah, so we follow him as his last few days he's dying. He ends up he goes to a man named Marvel. Marvel eventually steals from him, or tries to steal from him. Unclear if he like actually does, like Griffin says that he does, but anyway. No, so Griffin is just this albino college man. He said he was 22 when he kind of came up with the theory of how to transform living matter into invisibility. He got obsessed with this idea of light, and how, if you guys don't know how light works, if we're bringing it down to light, my phone isn't pink, it's every color but pink, and so when the light bounces off of it, you see pink, you see the absence of whatever is in light, right? He became obsessed with that idea. If you don't know how light waves work, very, very rudimentary. I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist, I'm sorry. Very, very rudimentary explanation, but he became obsessed with it, and so he became obsessed with the idea of trying to turn living matter invisible. Think jellyfish type situation. And it took him a few years. I think he was about 30 when he finally did it, and he animal brutality warning, he does it to a cat and then chloroforms the cat to make it be quiet because it's in so much pain it won't stop yowling. And so people are like coming to his house to be like, hey, why are you torturing a cat? And he's like, I'm not torturing a cat. The cat's chloroformed in the other room. But he knew that like they didn't believe him, and so they are like coming into his house to kind of they think that he's doing illegal like experiments, right? And so they're coming to his house to kind of prove that he's doing illegal things, and he has all this lab equipment and all this research equipment there. So he starts the process of turning himself invisible, right? And trying to keep his research secret. And the only way that he's able to do this is because he's a man with albinism. He's an albino man. Not something I knew, which is wild. And so apparently he could turn everything invisible except for the pigment in, which, hilarious, you can tell he's a white man because he's like everything except for the pigment in hair and eyes. And I'm like, melanin's a thing, but yeah, anything that's not the pigment in hair and eyes he could turn invisible, so he was able to turn himself invisible because he was so fair to begin with. And then he was like, oh, I have all this power, I'm invisible, and all he does is get sick and scare people. That's it. He just messes with people, and he's just a menace to society. Like, that's the only way to describe it. He ends up like, because he has to run around naked and it's like winter, so he just keeps getting sick, so he just keeps having sniffles, and he's running around, and like the first place, so he like he sends off his checkbook and a couple like binders of research. He like sends it to the inn that he's going to stay in, or he sends it to somewhere near the inn where he's going. He sends it off somewhere, right? But he takes his other stuff with him, gets lodging. Somehow he like sneaks into lodging, ends up burning the place down with his lifelong research in it and all of his clothes and everything he owns. So then he's running around naked, and then he has to go steal clothes, and then he ends up like going to like a wig shop, and that's where he gets the fake nose and the sunglasses and the the hat and the fake hair and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a Scooby-Doo episode. Like, he's just running around scaring people. And then, like, you know, he goes to the inn. Like, we've seen, we start the book with him at the inn, which we've talked about. He messes with those people. What do you mean you can't see? What do you mean you don't see a hand? You know, are you feeling okay? Type situation. And yeah, and then he goes to Marvel, and this is like this idiot man. He asks Marvel to help him break back into the inn to get his research back, and then that doesn't work, and so he ends up going to like an old college friend. And that's when he finds out that like, oh, it's only the living matter, because he cuts his hand and the blood has slowly turned visible again. And he's like, oh, this was really funny. He was talking to his college friend Kent, telling him how he turned himself invisible, why he wanted to turn himself invisible, and why he was so obsessed with this. And he And he's telling him this, and Kent very, very quickly realizes, he lets him stay the night, and he very quickly realizes, this man can kill me and no one would ever know. Very quickly. Which, because in his story, he's killed someone. And he himself is like, oh, well, you know, he probably like untied himself, he probably got out, but it's been a few days, like he's probably fine. Talking about this old man that he beat and tied up to steal his clothes. Oh my god, this man's an awful man. And but Kent, the next day they're talking, and he's like letting him talk about like why he became the Invisible Man and how this happened. And they're talking, and Griffin goes, I heard the door open. And Ken's like, no, that's not true. And he just like makes noise, and oh, I think there's someone coming up the stairs. No, what are you talking about? Just starts talking louder, and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening in this book? What's going on? And the police come in, and they're a dog with a bone. They're like, we're here to arrest someone. He's invisible? Cool, I got arresting to do. I don't know where your hands are, but give them to me. Let me arrest you. Like, it's insane. And that's how like the tussle kind of breaks out, and how someone gets a gun somehow, and that's how he ends up getting shot, and then he dies, and he slowly becomes visible again. And there you are. That's the Invisible Man in a very quick layman version of this book. I don't know what I learned from this. I don't know if I learned like a specific skill like I did with Dracula, if you know we're making a skill tree, but I do think that it's a fun reminder to just have humor in your books. Like, oh my god, man, because there's no reason for this book to be as funny as it is, but it's really funny, and I think that's what makes it so classic. Because yes, H.G. Wells, you know, one of the fathers of science fiction, although when I say H.G. Wells I do just think of the woman from Warehouse 13, but that's just me, I love that show. Anyway, one of the fathers of science fiction, and was very much ahead of his time with his writing. But what I find so interesting is that like all the tropes that I've associated with the Invisible Man were not there. They weren't, except for like the dying at the end, which is, it's a weird echo of what actually happens in the original story, you know what I mean? So I just thought that was really, really interesting, that how this story has persisted in the common zeitgeist, but not in the way that I at least originally thought. But what I found so timeless about it was the super sarcastic, like dry asshole humor is shit that I would say. Genuinely, if I was fed up with someone's shit like that, I would be Griffin minus the violent outburst. Because this man is very violent. He is just very violent, but in that same vein, that makes sense. And what I mean is, he is a scientist, right? He went to school. He's more well off than the average person to be able to, at the age of 22, completely devote his like life to trying to find out how to make yourself invisible. That is jobless behavior. So do with that information what you will. But at one point when he's like, this actually did make me laugh, because this is also a timeless piece. He's in a retail store, and he's hiding out, right, for them to close so he can steal things, right? And he comments on how much, like, once they're closed, the work people are ushering people out, and they're so excited to have their day over, and they're like rushing, cleaning, putting things away, and they're chattering with each other, and they're very much, to me it felt like closing shift on a Friday night, everyone getting their shit together to get the fuck out, right? And he's like, And he's sitting there like, I have never seen a retail person move with such gusto. And I'm like, I'm gonna punch you in the face. I'm gonna punch you in the face. I really am. So, jobless behavior. Griffin is a jobless man. And that's what I've learned. He pissed me off, personally. So, yeah. I don't think I have much else to say about that. Not my favorite so far. But no, the dry sarcastic humor was the highlight for me. All that being said, we're moving on to book number 3, Frankenstein, which I expect for this to be more jobless behavior. So let me read you the synopsis. Mary Shelley began writing Frankenstein when she was only 18, at once a gothic thriller, a passionate romance, and a cautionary tale about the dangers of science. Frankenstein tells the story of committed scientist student Victor Frankenstein obsessed with discovering the cause of generation and life, and bestowing animation upon lifeless matter. Frankenstein assembles a human being from stolen body parts. However, upon bringing it to life, he recoils in horror at the creature's hideousness. Tormented by isolation and loneliness, the once innocent creature turns to evil and unleashes a campaign of murderous revenge against his creator, Frankenstein. Frankenstein, an instant bestseller and an important ancestor to both the horror and science fiction genres, not only tells a terrifying story, but also raises profound, disturbing questions about the very nature of life and the place of humankind within the cosmos. What does it mean to be human? What responsibilities do we have to each other? And how far can we go in tampering with nature? I'm very excited for this one. I do know that Victor Frankenstein is another jobless man who does not realize how privileged he is. He's kind of a little bitch. And that is all I really remember from AP Literature. High school 10 years ago. Oh. And I remember there being no Igor. So yeah, let's hop into it. I am excited for this one. This is another, going back to the epistolary side of horror and science fiction. This is a story within a story. I don't remember who is on the boat, but someone is on a boat and they learn the story of Frankenstein through diary entries. I just know there's a boat and it's a story within a story. That's all I really remember. So let's hop into it. Hopefully it's better than The Invisible Man. If you think that there's a better H.G. Wells novel that I should read instead of The Invisible Man, or if you have hot takes about The Invisible Man and you're like, oh well, you missed this, you missed that, you missed this context, and you know this makes it better, please let me know down below. Please let me know, because it's a white man doing white man things and I don't get it. I don't get it. So okay, bye. Victor's fucking weird. Okay, I'm in the bathroom because Wub is on a call with a friend and I didn't want to interrupt. You know, he would gladly go on mute, but I'm not gonna do that. Hear that laughter? No. Victor's fucking weird. So I did not catch the name of the letter writer, but he's writing to his sister Margaret about he's the captain of a ship. Again, the story within the story. This is the outside story. This is the outer shell of the peanut. But he is going on this trip to explore and adventure and discover things, whatever unemployed man behavior. And I'm just gonna say that for anything. I'm just gonna say that for anything. But they end up finding a man on a sled. There's only one dog, all the dogs have died, and like the snow ice has been broken up and is floating in the water, right? They find him. It's Victor Frankenstein, it's our boy, and he's goddamn it, my car's gonna die. And so they're talking and he's like, let me tell you the story, and the captain guy is like, oh, I'm so excited, like I was lonely, I wanted a friend, and again the very romantic language of love and soul bearing and blah, but like in a completely platonic way, the capital R romance, which I love. But they end up hitting it off and they're talking and he's sharing. Victor starts to share what his life story was and he talks about his parents and how his dad he marries the daughter of his dead friend, and his like undying devotion to her because she had such a sorrow in her life, so he like spent his entire life molding the world so she would never be in want, as if to make up for those lost years. Love you, beautiful. Don't like that there's like a 12-year age difference, if not more. I think closer like to 15 plus age difference, but whatever. That's weird. But they have Victor and they're going off, and they're in Italy, and his mom, because she like Victor's dad's friend had money, came for money, and then lost. Okay, I had to run and change my battery. Now you're balancing on the edge of a drawer. Anyway, but Victor, I don't know where we left off. Victor's dad's friend had money, lost money, was poor, was on like the verge of starving, and he ends up dying, and his child's an orphan. Victor's dad marries said orphan. And so she knows that she came from poverty, right? And so they're on vacation in Italy, and just the parents, not Victor. Victor's alive at this point, but his parents go without him. And his mom, because she came from poverty, because she came from like a very poor background, always made it a point to go to the impoverished village to see what she could do, to give money, to give food, whatever she could, which honorable. We love to see it, Mrs. Frankenstein. This is here's the thing about classic literature, is that there's so many words, and we go on so many tangents, and then it always ties back. Always ties back. It's because she's impoverished, or because she came from poverty, and because she is younger, and because she has this kind heart, and because Mr. Frankenstein like gave her the world. Because of all those things, when she goes into this poor person's home, she says they have 5 kids, and there's one kid that stands out to her. This beautiful baby with blonde hair and big blue eyes and super fair white skin. She's not like those other poors who have dark hair and dark eyes and dark skinned. No, she's an angel sent from above. She's just so lovely, and I'm like, eh? That's so gross. Not that she's like a lovely child. No. Not that she's a lovely child. Nothing against Elizabeth. Nothing against Elizabeth. It's the contrast to the darker features. And yes, I'm saying this as a brown person. But like, if again, in the world of where racism and colorism exists, to have these 5 children who are all equally impoverished, who are all equally suffering, that the one that doesn't deserve to be suffering is the white one with blonde hair and blue eyes, is gross. Just saying. And again, that's just a product of the times, and I think it's meant to be gross. I hope it's meant to be kind of gross. Either that, or it's just like a time period thing. But like, because they bring home Elizabeth, and they told Victor, oh, we brought you something, we brought you a gift, being like, we brought you a little sister, but he takes that as, she's mine, and he says, my more than sister, and I'm like, I don't remember this. What do you mean you're more than sister? And like, because they were both a little bit older, old enough to talk, at least I think they address each other as cousins, or they address something about cousins. Here's the thing with classic literature. There are so many words, and it's so easy to just kind of glaze over them. And then you're like, oh, the thing about the cousins? The reason why I picked up the camera is because he's like, my sister, my more than sister, who belongs to me, and until she dies, she belongs to me. This beautiful cherub of a woman. And I'm like, not woman, I think he says girl, but like, stinky. What? What is this context that is there historical context that I'm missing? I fucking hope so. Dear God. Oh my God. But yeah, I am 30-40 minutes into it. I'm not that far into it, into like this 8-hour book. I'm not that far into it, and I was like, I had to pick it up. And it's so interesting. This is why I think it's meant to be intentional, because Margaret's brother, the captain of the ship that where this story being told is taking place, I'm gonna call him Patrick. I don't know if that's his name. Patrick. The way he talks about his sister is they talk, again, still using that flowery romantic language, but he's still like, my dear sister, my dearest sister, my most trusted confidant, like the person I care most about, but like in a familial way, you know what I mean? The way that you are with siblings, if you have a good relationship with your sibling. Like I would call my brother my most trusted confidant, or one of them at least, you know, like, but to describe someone as mine, my gift, my sister, my thing, until she dies, is gross. And I'm pretty sure she dies, which makes it worse. I'm pretty sure she dies at like 13, 14, maybe more. I don't know. I just remember there's a girl who dies. That is one of the Frankenstein tropes. We didn't talk about tropes, Frankenstein tropes. We one, I did mention there's no Igor in the book, if I remember correctly, there's no Igor, at least by name. But the tropes are the bolts, which I know that's a Universal Studios thing, the green skin, which again I think that's a Universal Studios thing, the fact that he's green, because if I remember in the book he's supposed to be like handsome. I remember he has like really dark hair. So the Frankenstein tropes is he's stupid, he is a monster in the sense of he's terrifying and he wants to kill people, and he's stupid and he can't like put together sentences very well, and like, what's the not gentle giant? You think gentle giant and you think like Iron Giant, like this big kind of dumb but really empathetic character who, despite the big clumsy stature and big fingers, they'll still pick up the tiniest living creature with such kindness. Whatever the fuck the opposite of that is, that's what's usually assigned to Frankenstein. And then also scared of fire. Scared of fire is another one. And sounds. And then of course the Bride of Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster being, and of course Frankenstein monster, but we know him as Frankenstein. But him being a lonely creature who wants love, that's another part of this. Again, the whole, there's something to be said about monsters and villainy and vile evil creatures being tied back to romance and to love and to tenderness and to usually a woman of some sort. There's something to be said about like the reason why these monster stories kind of exist, and not in a way to like humanize the monsters, but to humanize the people around them almost, and to add a sense of romance to these monster stories. That seems like a very vital, important aspect to kind of amplify the horror, and I don't know what that is. Like I said, there's something to be said about it. I'm not gonna be the one to say because I don't know, but there is something to be said there. There's a really good video about the flowers in the attic. If I can find it, I will link it. But they talk about this creator. They talk about incest and why we have incest in stories, and the taboo nature of it and why humans seem to be so drawn to it. And I can't help but recall that video when reading how Victor talks about his sister, and how it contrasts to how Patrick talks about Margaret. I'm only 40 minutes in and I have already so much to talk about. It made me feel a lot of things. Mary Shelley is the goddess of horror for a reason. Okay, let's get back to reading. Okay, so I am 28% of the way through Frankenstein, right? He has created the monster. He ran away from the monster, fell into a depression, and now his little brother is dead. Victor, by the way, not the monster. And now his little brother is dead, and he has gone home from college to go spend time with his family. And on his way like home, like he stops by where his brother was found strangled, right? And in the lightning strike illuminated across the lake is this huge stature, this huge monster, and he's like, oh no, it couldn't be my own devil, my own sin haunting me, what have you. I've had this question this entire time. Why didn't you have a backup plan? Why didn't you want to kill it? You know what I mean? And I don't mean like planning to fail, but if you're trying to bring something back to life, and I understand, like, maybe he hadn't seen enough zombie movies because they weren't around yet, that he wouldn't have thought to, like, kill it, you know, or, like, not thought to have been prepared to kill it, his monster, because he thought it would bring back a human, you know. So I get it, but why not hunt it down? You know, like, there has to be a moment. I don't understand how there's not a moment where everything goes wrong and your first thought isn't, oh dear God, I have to kill this thing. You know what I mean? And he just lets it go. It's like, it's just like not his problem, and he's depressed because it didn't work. He's depressed because, like, he made a monster, and there's not enough, like, guilt for me. There's not enough, like, I'm anxious because I've just let it run around and it could be doing what God knows what. It's very like, woe is me. And it's driving me insane. And I know he's telling this like in retrospect, you know what I mean? Like, this is later on, like, he's retelling the story that happened in the past. So, like, maybe, I don't know, I was just thinking, like, maybe he is, like, in retrospect, that's more what he remembers, is this feeling of, like, depression that he was thrown into, like, this instant depression that he was thrown into, but not a single ounce of, like, self-awareness of, I've created a monster that's just running around doing God knows what. Victor, I need a little common sense. Just a smidgen of common sense. I didn't expect to be this exasperated by Victor, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I am. And it's just insane to me that this man creates life and then doesn't care what happens to it. And could that be, and here's the thing, could that be intentional? Could that be a commentary? Absolutely, it absolutely could be. I believe that Mary Shelley is incredibly intelligent, and the way this book is written, nothing feels accidental. It doesn't feel like she stumbled upon being the mother of science fiction, you know what I mean? It's not something that happened by accident. I know people talk about, like, oh, she wrote Frankenstein, like, as a bet, just, like, proof that she could, but, like, and while I do love that attitude of don't tell me what to do, I'm gonna do it anyway, I don't think that this sprang up out of nowhere. And because just being a woman, you know what I mean? I have met men like Victor. I have met men like his colleagues. I have met men like his father. And it just feels way too intentional. And again, the echoes of the past coming to haunt us in the future is just insane. And classics are classics for a reason because there's so, okay. And classics are classics for a reason because there's just so much truth to the story that happens. And there's so much that feels old-timey that is still prevalent nowadays, you know? And I don't want to believe that this was accidental. And what I mean about, like, I know men like Victor and I know men like his father is just like these men that have no self-awareness. And not just men, women as well, you know, and non-binary people as well, like all equal opportunity hater over here. But, like, I've met people who are so unself-aware, who never stop to ask why. They always ask, can they, not should they. You know what I mean? And that is where Victor falls. And I think that's why, and you know, and that's absolutely why this is such a timeless classic. And why we still have the monster of Frankenstein to this day. And it's so interesting just to look into this novel and to find so many just echoes of like modern day life, like ignoring the big one, ignoring the elephant of the room of like a father abandoning his child and being oh woe is me about it. Like, we're ignoring the big one, but that is like a huge one, you know, that is very prevalent of like. And if you haven't met a person like this, like, God bless, but the type of person who the second the consequences of their actions come about, instead of trying to solve it, go, woe is me, my life is just so hard. And it's like, buddy, your job is school. Your job is school, and you like school, and you go to school. And that's it. Like, you don't have otherworldly responsibilities at the moment. Except for the baby you made, and they're currently ignoring. Buddy, I need some sort of initiative from you. And I can't help but to think that it's intentional, especially with his weird, gross relationship with Elizabeth, because we see how Patrick, I still don't know the man's name, Captain Patrick and Margaret, how they talk to each other, or how he talks to her, I should say, and how it is just like a genuine, respectful, like, brother-sister relationship versus the fact that, like, Victor's dad goes out of his way to call Elizabeth their cousin, not their sister, their cousin, and to keep that like sort of distance, even though he adopted her as a child and has raised her alongside his children. But no, it's a cousin, in case, just in case, don't worry about it. And it's just like I can't, I refuse to believe that Mary Shelley didn't know what she was doing when she wrote this, that the true monster is man all along. Like, I can't, you cannot say that that was an accident. And it's just wild to me. Just the subverting of expectations, I think, is really interesting. And as someone who loves to be a bit of a smartass, and who loves to subvert expectations, I love it. I'm having a lot of fun. Victor's pissing me off to no end, but I knew that going into this. And so I just wanted to like check in and get my thoughts out of where we are currently. And I am never going to ask, why didn't Victor try to kill it from moment one instead of just running away? I understand it's a grotesque monster. I understand that he hadn't seen any zombie movies. I understand. But the second shit hit the fan, there's a moment of, oh dear God, I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. Everyone gets that. I get it. And then the second moment is, what do I do now? And he failed at the second moment. That's all I'm trying to say, okay? That's it. Anyway, I'm making little bat keychains. Sparkly. I'm making little bat keychains while I listen to this. This one has one wing, and I'm about to test the second one, and it's gonna be like a little keychain. And then, when I get tired of that, I also am making Halloween socks. I do need to work on my Taylor Swift dress, I understand. I'm probably gonna do that tomorrow. That's my plan anyway. There's a video of monsters and crafts, so I hope that you're okay with that. Anyway, back to Frankenstein. Okay, Percy in the wild. I just got out of pottery, open studio. I'm just so messy. And I am well over halfway through Frankenstein. Like, I'm almost done, and I have to finish it because like the loan is about to expire. But we're at the part where, okay, also the reason why this is horizontal as opposed to, I have clay in my hair, as opposed to landscape, is because I'm in front of a child's park and I don't want to look like I am filming children. This way at least looks like a FaceTime call, you see? No, so I'm at the part in Frankenstein where Frankenstein has found Victor. He has told his tale, or Victor is telling the tale of how Frankenstein found him. His monster has found him. Whatever, you know what I mean? Yes, I know Frankenstein's monster is the monster, Frankenstein's the man. Shut up. But, so Frankenstein has found him, and Frankenstein has found Frankenstein, and he's telling him of how he came to be. Like, how he, after being abandoned by his father, escaped down to the woods, came across a village who tried to kill him, tried to shun him, pitchforks, blah, 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 and ended up coming across a little house where he studied the family, a father, his 2 adult children, and the soon-to-be wife of the son, who, you know, in the like year that he's watching them, they get married. But don't blame me. But he's telling this tale, and forgot Frankenstein is fluent in French. He taught himself French, which is much more, I think, impressive given how many fucking letters there are in the French language. Like, there are just so many words that have so many extra letters, and for what? For what? So the fact that he taught himself to read and write and to speak French is very impressive to me, which is like the point. But yeah, that's how he learned to talk, to read, how to communicate, and then he talks to the family. He tried to like reason with the father of like, I need a friend, I need someone to help me, like I'm trying to meet with my friends and they might shun me, and the father's blind, so he's like begging with him. To him, this is one chance to get accepted into the family, right? But the kids walk in on him like draped over the father's lap, grabbing him, begging him, and they think that he's being attacked by this horrible monster. And so after that, this like betrayal of human nature and coming to terms with being a monster and that he will never be loved, he goes on a rampage. And he, not a rampage, but he goes to find his master. He has all like the master's letters, he has the books that he stole from the family, and so with the little pieces of knowledge, he's going to go find Frankenstein, his daddy Victor. He doesn't get that, he's not a daddy. Oh my god, he's a little piece of motherfucking, I hate Victor so much. This book is taking me so long because for the first good chunk of it, we're learning through Victor and his voice and his experience and how he views things, and I'm like, I just want to punch you in the face. You're a bitch. Like, I want to punch you in the face so badly. But now that we're learning from Frankenstein's point of view, it was a lot more easy to read. Like, it was just a lot more enjoyable because Frankenstein isn't as gross as Victor. But until he ends up finding Victor's little brother. He is the one that killed him because in his mind, he grabs a child who might not have learned to hate yet, and he grabs him like, no, you're coming with me, like, I need a friend, you're gonna be my friend, like, not super understanding how to make friends, because of course not. And the child is like, no, my father's gonna hear about this, my father Frankenstein, he's going to da-da-da-da-da, like, trying to use his father's rank, and Frankenstein goes, oh, Frankenstein, oh, how nice, and kills him. He's like, you're going to be, like, my first act of revenge against the man who I've sworn my life's mission to revenge, basically. And, so he's doing that, and he sees the beautiful brooch of, Mrs. Frankenstein, the mom who died. He sees the beautiful brooch, and he's so encaptured by her beauty that he takes it, and he just lets himself look at it for a little bit, like, just enjoying the fake presence of another beautiful creature, of another person. But then he ends up coming across, Justine, who is like the Frankenstein family friend, who they have, when little brother Frankenstein was killed, she was the one who was found guilty because she was the one who found the brooch, right? She does not remember seeing him or killing him or hurting him in any way, and she ends up being found guilty, and she dies. I don't know why she dies. Does she die of heartbreak? That's what it seems like. That she's just so frail from the decision. She doesn't know what to do, and so she dies. Okay. Which, like, this is, like, a really dear family friend, and not only that, but, like, they've taken her in as their own multiple times. Like, she basically is a cousin or an aunt. And Elizabeth even says, like, I cannot believe that Justine would do this. She's raised that boy as her own. I do not believe that she would do this, right? So the heartbreak, I understand, but she dies of heartbreak, which is fine. I think it warrants I think her dying of heartbreak is totally fine. If that's why she dies, I think that's why she dies. I might have missed it, but I'm, like, pretty sure that's why she dies. And it's very in capital R romance of the world, which I'm totally fine with. I love that. But, so she dies, and we find out that Frankenstein ends up coming across her, and in, like, a fit of rage, he looks at her and sees everything he can't have, and that it's her fault that she will never give him that grace, and it's her fault for everything that she represents, and it's her fault that he will never be loved. And I was like, oh buddy, I was with you until then, because no, it's not. She didn't do anything. She's like passed out when he even comes across her. And like, that's violence against women. Violence against women goes back centuries, dear God. And so he plants the brooch on her so she can take the fall. Kind of, not like, he doesn't have the reasoning of like it's going to court, you know what I mean, like how we saw, but he knows that tying them together, she'll take the blame for it. And I was, oh man, Frankenstein, I was so on your side until then. Anyway, that's where we are. I just need to talk about it because, Frankie, buddy, I was so on your side. I was so on your side until then, and now I'm not. Okay, I'm driving, and I refuse to look at the camera, so I don't even know if I'm recording, because I'm gonna be safe. But, I need it to, I'm putting this down securely. Okay, I need to be known that fucking, I hate Victor! I hate him! Oh my god! Oh my god! So Frankenstein has asked, I'm still driving home from Pottery, like, what the fuck? But, no, so, I don't know if you can hear me, I don't know if you're gonna have the rumble of the car, because you're on my coffee cup anyway, but fucking Victor oh my god, don't fall. Victor has to okay, Frankenstein, the monster, has come to Victor. He's like, you made me to be the loneliest creature in the world. You abandoned me. You hate me. I ask one favor of you and you can make it all up to me. Make me a wife so I can run off and live together happily, the two of us. Which I love. Frankenstein, absolutely, like, yeah, no, that tracks. And I know about the Bride of Frankenstein. Like, there's a reason why one of Frankenstein's archetypes is lonely man needs wife. Very Beauty and the Beast coded, but I'm not gonna elaborate on that. I don't think I need to, but no, okay, so that's where we are, right? And of course, to parallel the monster, now that Victor, he says he's in a better mood now that he's like met with the monster again. You're still not taking responsibility for anything, Victor. But so he, hold on, I am merging. But no, so he's not taking responsibility for anything, but he's like, oh, like, this is my way out, it's totally fine, like, I just need to make him a wife, and then he goes away, and that's totally fine. But I'm gonna put it off for as long as possible because I find it scary, and he scares me. And I'm like, okay, Victor, sure. But because he's now in a better mood, and I think he's just in a better mood because this man loves science. He's like, I love creating life and then abandoning it. This is my calling, really. But freaking, so he's in a better mood, and so his dad like sees him being more happy and running around, and even though he still doesn't partake in society and is still not like fully not depressed, like fully healed, he sees that he is being better, so he's like, let's have a chat, you and me, bestie. And he's like, yeah, so I know that you're meant to marry Elizabeth, right? And like, you've been betrothed to her since you guys were children, because you guys were raised together. And I know you see her as your sister, and she was raised as your sister, but like, you have to marry her. And I know if you have met another woman who you love, that's gonna get complicated. But like, you're still engaged to her. And I'm like, fucking poor Elizabeth. Oh my god. Like, it makes me so sad. She was plucked from poverty, yes, to the family that she will forever feel indebted to. And once the mom died, she was left with the responsibility of being the mother to the children, even though she herself was a child, which I didn't mention. But yeah, the mother on her deathbed was like, it is now your job to take care of them the way that I would and to fill in the space that I used to take. And I'm like, oh my god, she's like 15. Stop. And now, and which she does, like, she's like, these are my children, I love them, I've raised them, even though she herself's a child. And now it's like, oh yeah, to like solidify the familial union, Victor, you have to marry her. And Victor, of course, is like, well, yeah, she belongs to me. I've never loved anyone the way I love Elizabeth. Of course I'm gonna marry her. And I'm like, grotesque, disgusting. Oh my god, this is gross. Which again, like, is the point, I believe. And yes, I know, like, incest in horror stories is, like, kind of always on the periphery. But I hate Victor so much, it's extra nasty. Extra nasty. So, we'll see what happens. I believe Elizabeth dies. I'm not sure if that... Ah! Nothing happened. It was a speed bump. I promise. It was just a speed bump. But yeah, so I think Elizabeth dies. I'm pretty sure she does. And yeah, I hate Victor. All this to say, poor Elizabeth. Fuck Victor. I don't know where I stand on the monster right now. I want to love him. His grotesque, ugly little thing. I want to love him, but I say little. He's like 8 feet tall. But oh my god. Oh my god. And yeah, like, I just can't get over, because of course Victor is gonna marry Elizabeth, because of course he is. She is mine. She was a gift to me. She belongs to me. She is the most lovely thing, so of course she's mine to have until death at the age of 6. I hate Victor so much. Ah! Yay! Okay. I finished Frankenstein. Am I zoomed all the way out? No, wrong way. Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. So I finished Frankenstein. It's taken me way too long to finish this goddamn book. I didn't like it. Not because of the writing or the story. I fucking hate Victor. I hate him so much. And I think I made my stance on Victor clear in the past few clips, but like, let's just catch up, you and me. So, one fun fact, this is going back to when Frankenstein was first, the monster, was first learning English and history and geography and stuff with the family that didn't know he was there. He ends up overhearing about Christopher Columbus and the massacre that happened, and they talk about the tragedy that happened in the States, or not the States, they called it like the New World, like the tragedy that happened in the New World, which is like the Native American massacres that were happening. Hilariously, yesterday was Indigenous People Day, so timing of that was just really funny. Not funny haha, but funny. Indigenous People Day, if you don't know, is, I'm in California, so Indigenous People Day is the renaming of Columbus Day. If you're not from the States, Columbus Day is like the day that Christopher Columbus became a fucking menace to society in the States. Growing up, for me, Columbus Day was like, oh, we learned about Christopher Columbus. In 1972, he sailed the ocean blue, whatever it was. 1972? Yep. That's when he discovered America. Whatever the rhyme is. And within the past, like, 10 years, it's now been I don't want to say rebranded, but rebranded as Indigenous People Day. And it's still, like, considered a, like, government holiday. Like, government jobs still get it off, and some jobs still get it off. This is not relevant. I just wanted you guys to know, in case you didn't know. But there you go, Indigenous People Day. So, the fact that it's being referenced in Frankenstein, the horrible tragedy that happened in the States, is just really funny to me. Again, not funny, haha. But, and Indigenous Peoples Day is to commemorate and honor and to remember the Native Americans who were massacred and raped and just were massacred by Christopher Columbus coming to the States. Anyway, that's the whole point of Indigenous Peoples Day. Anyway, the fact that's referenced in Frankenstein as like a tragedy and as like the horrible like monstrosity thing that happened. I just thought was really funny. So there's that. I just wanted to mention that because the timing, because that was yesterday for me. But yeah, no, I hate Victor. I hate Victor so much. He just doesn't do anything. Like, he realizes those are government documents. Right on. No, so he doesn't do anything. So the monster, by the way, I am sparkle. I am trimming off the edges. So if you see glitter in my hair, that's why. But no, so Victor doesn't do anything. So he makes the monster, says, ah, a monster, and runs away. No backup plan as to what, in case, you know, something went wrong. No backup plan. Runs away, says, it's not my problem. Falls into a depression because he's like, I've created a beast, I've created a demon. And then just is depressed. Okay. And then like he goes home, his brother has died, and he's like, oh my god, my monster killed my brother, it's my fault, I might as well have killed them. And then he still does nothing. Like, he's just a depressed rich boy. And it's like, I'm not saying anything about people who suffer from depression. There's a reason why I didn't upload on this channel for over 2 months. Like, I'm right there with you. That's not what I'm like ragging on. I'm ragging on Victor very specifically because these are the consequences of his own actions. You know what I mean? Like, he created a monster and then said, it's not my problem, I don't want to deal with it. The monster is killing people, kills multiple people, kills his wife, because him and Elizabeth do get married. It's gross. Which, okay, this pissed me off because he talked about so much about how much he loves Elizabeth, about how much tranquility having her in his life would bring to him, about like how wonderful she was, his other half, blah 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 blah. His sister, by the way, his sister slash cousin slash the girl that he was raised alongside as a family member, yeah, love of his life, he marries her, right? And it's like a sentence. This man will talk for pages on pages about how much of a monster he is, but when he's talking about the woman that he's apparently been in love with his entire life and them getting married, it's like half a page. In total, by the way. And then they're off on their honeymoon and like whatever her inheritance is. She inherits a house, like whatever her inheritance is. They're there. And I'm like, really? You make such a big kick and a fuss about Elizabeth, of how she's yours, she belongs to you. And then when you finally marry her, it's like, oh, we got married. Stinky man. And I don't know if this is just me, because it could be, but like, I hate men who are, and this could just be me, but the way he talks about Elizabeth really grosses me out. Not just because they're family, like if we put that aside, not just because they're family, but the way that he talks about her being like, she'll complete me, she will bring me peace, she'll bring me tranquility, she's like, she's gonna take care of me, pisses me the fuck off. Pardon my French, but it pisses me the fuck off. Like, and again, that could just be me. I had a partner, not even a partner, dear God, I had a boy like that in college. He was 5 years older than me, and I'm still gonna call him a boy because he was not a man. But I had a boy like that in college, and it's just gross. It's just gross. If you have someone saying that, like, oh, like, I love all these things that you do for me, you bring me peace, you know when to hold my hand, you know how to comfort me, you know how to take care of me, me, they only view you as an accessory, babe. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you, but you're nothing but like a pretty sparkly purse. That's it. And that's what Victor reminds me of. Very much. And again, so interesting. This book that was written so long ago can still bring up these feelings in me, can still bring to mind someone who I knew in my life currently. Not currently, 5 years ago. But someone who I knew in my life at one point. Like, to a goddamn T. Insane. insane. You know, he didn't, you know, this boy didn't create life, didn't create a monster, but he was the type to run away from responsibilities. Anyway, I hate Victor so much. People are dying and he doesn't do anything. And I know this is gonna sound so American of me, but oh my god, get a gun. Get a gun. Just shoot him. Just shoot the monster. Like, that's it. This could have been solved so easily if you just got a gun. You have the money. You have the access. You're a man. You can't just go buy a gun. Buy a gun. That's it. Am I gonna have to bleep the word? Get a pew pew. Get a pew pew. Gosh darn. But he doesn't, and just like this dodging of responsibility and this oh woe is me attitude pisses me the hell off. And I think this is my interpretation of the novel, because we talk about Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster a lot in modern media, and the consensus that I've always heard is that the human is the monster, not the monster that was made, because he didn't ask to be made. That the real monster at the end of the day was the human all along, was Victor. And I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, this entire book is the consequences of his own goddamn actions. And for what? For what? It's like implied that he's like wants to bring his mom back to life, but like not really, because he knows that she's decomposing already by the time he figures it out. So he's not even driven by that at that point. He just wants to do it just because. It's the Invisible Man all over again. You ask what, but you don't ask why. You ask how, but to what end? Oh my god, this man pissed me off. He pissed me off. And I think what I learned from this book, like very, very specifically, is like action. Like, characters need action. They need something to do. And this is something I try to do in my novels already. I always want, and this does come from theater, I always want my characters physically doing something in a scene. I never want a scene where they're just sitting and talking. They are doing something because things need to be done. If you look in your everyday life, very rarely do you sit and talk with a friend. You get food with a friend, you're eating, you're drinking, you're chatting, you're doing a puzzle, you're doing a little craft, you know, like very rarely are we not doing anything. And that's what I wanted from Victor. I wanted action. Do something. Stop lamenting. Stop laying there and being passive in your own goddamn story. And again, my brother just got home. I could be wrong in this. There could be something that I'm missing, some sort of context that I am missing. But as your local idiot who is reading these books with no background knowledge, just a layman picking up Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley, this is my interpretation. And it's valid because it's mine. And I hate Victor. I think he's so dumb. I think he's incredibly passive. And I think he's stupid. Personally. And not just because, like, I don't like him, but also just because he just doesn't do anything. He just complains. And it's like, if you had taken responsibility for your own actions, none of this, or less of this, would have happened. And that just grinds my gears. I always tell my partner I never want to be someone who lives by the grace of others. And what I mean by that is, you all of you guys, I know you're smart and sexy, and I know this isn't you, but all of you have someone in your life who you are like, I don't understand how you're still alive. You don't take care of yourself. I don't know how you're still alive. You go out, you drink, and you black out, and you don't know how you get home because someone else gets you home. Someone else puts you in the car. You have a friend who's always there. Oh man, you're planning to go to this music festival by yourself. You have no idea how you're gonna get there. No idea where you're gonna stay. You have no idea who you're even seeing, but it all ends up fine because you met a group of girls that were super nice and brought you under their wing. You met this bachelorette party that had extra room in their Airbnb. Those type of people where it's almost painted as like things just work out for me. Like they just work. And it's like, no. You're existing by the grace of others. others are keeping you alive, and that does not bother you, and that's always bothered me, and that's the kind of person that Victor reminds me of. He is alive by the good grace of others, and that pisses me off. It pisses me off. It just does. And like, at one point he ends up going to England. Yeah, at one point he ends up going to England to talk to other philosophers because the monster wants him to make him a bride, Frankenstein's bride, and he like, make me a partner and let us run off together and never bother you again. I just don't want to be lonely anymore. And Victor's like, okay, well, I have to do more research, and he ends up talking with other philosophers in England, right? Well, this guy gets killed. One of his friends gets killed, and he finds out. Victor ends up finding out. He gets lost and ends up in Scotland, and that's where he finds out because they accuse him of the murder, and he's like, breaks down in hysterics, and for 2 months he is like having an episode for 2 months, and he's just kind of ill, and he's in an inn, and he's alive because they didn't let him die. You know what I mean? Like, the town folk kind of just take care of him. This stranger that just shows up and then has a mental breakdown on their doorstep, and they're like, oh god damn it, we can't just let him freeze. That's what I mean about existing by the grace of others, and I hate it. I hate it. It's just not my cup of tea. Hi, editing Percy back. So I just wanted to take a moment to clarify something. I'm obviously not mad at the town folk for taking care of Victor, because he is like a frail man. Like, he's always kind of falling ill. He falls into hysterics, and he's depressed. You know what I mean? Like, he does need help. And I really like that they take care of him. It sounds like I don't, but I do, because it shows just human nature at its best, comparing to Victor kind of being human nature at its worst and abandoning life. But the town could very easily abandon this person that they think is a murderer. They don't know that he's not, but to them, he is, at least for right now, you know? So I just wanted to clarify that I do like that the town take care of him. I think that's a very, very nice look into human nature and taking care of each other when it matters most. I just don't like Victor at all. And I was already so pissed because I had just finished the book. I was already so pissed off at Victor that, thinking back on that moment, I was like, man, I hate this man. And no, I haven't changed my tune. I'm always the type of person who wants to have agency in how I live and how I'm alive and the choices I make. That is just me. This book evoked a lot of emotions in me, and for that, I think it's a good read. I think Mary Shelley is incredibly talented. I don't think that she ended up being the mother of science fiction horror by accident. I think that she was an incredibly talented author. And I do think that Frankenstein is incredibly well written, and I don't think that it is a mistake that Victor pisses you the fuck off the entire time, because he dies at the end. Spoiler alert, he dies at the end, and I feel nothing. Good. I'm glad he dies. Good. You know, he's on the ship with who I'm still calling Patrick. He's on the ship with Patrick, and like, he is basically like rallying everyone because they're stuck in like icebergs, and you know, he's helping keep morale up. You know, that's where they found him. They found him in the ice, or on top of the ice on a sled. That's where they find him, and he's like, he becomes Patrick's friend, and Patrick is trying to tell me that this man is like a gracious man. He's so smart, he's so charming, he's so intelligent, and I'm like, this is a stupid piece of shit that I want to punch in the face. Anyway, but he ends up dying, and Patrick ends up seeing the monster, and the monster has this big monologue about how he is just like cursed to live alone, and that like, to not judge him because of the pain that he has suffered and the agony that he has endured being created as this monstrous figure who just wants to be loved and who no one can love because he's so hideous, but having to bear that with emotional intelligence, knowing that he is lonely and wants companionship and that no one will ever want him, and being like tossed to the side and being feared. And it's a beautiful monologue, but I was so done by that point that I didn't care. I was just watching. I was just cutting off little pieces of sequence, and I was just watching the timer go down, and I was like, please be done. But it's done. I'm done. I don't think I'm gonna keep cutting. I have this to show you. I don't think I'm gonna keep cutting the seam allowance. I don't know if you could tell. I was cutting off the seam allowance. I don't think I'm going to, just because these little things end up everywhere, and it's just not worth it. I'll just have shitty seams. It's fine. But yeah, the importance of action was really, really drilled home in me in this book, and I am so glad that it's done. I don't think I'll ever read that again, ever. Dracula I will probably read again, but Frankenstein, no. Invisible Man, no. I can't believe that that's it. We did it. We read the 3 classic monster books, and did it make us better writers? Let's recap. So with Dracula, I do have the pretty, like, Barnes & Noble's edition. No, I did not read this edition. I did the audiobook. But with Dracula, I learned the importance of urgency in writing. The reason why we are writing letters and documentations not only conveys the feeling of the story, it also conveys just like the state of mind that the character is in, and the urgency affects the tone and the voice that is used, and that you can use that to flavor the story and not just use the letters as like a literary device, which I think is really cool. I think Dracula does a very good job of that. With the Invisible Man, I didn't learn jack shit. I genuinely don't know what I learned with the Invisible Man. I want to say that I learned how important humor is. I learned how important it is to commit to the bit. I learned how important it is, because like that's what the Invisible Man does really well, is I think it's really funny, and I don't think it's meant to be, but I think it's really funny, and I think that it commits to him being invisible. Like, genuinely, he goes out and he has to run around naked because his clothes aren't invisible, just him, and because of that he gets a cold, and so he's sneezing the entire time. So like the commitment to the bit is like really important, and thinking of those little details and having that flavor the story, it added a sense of realism in the sense of absurdity, because you and I know that having someone become invisible isn't a thing, but the fact that he got sick with a cold made it feel so much more real to me personally. So I loved that aspect of the Invisible Man, even if I didn't like the Invisible Man as a whole. And then with Frankenstein, oh god, I learned the importance of agency and having your characters make choices and active choices, and the importance of having a likable main character, and that they need to be active participants in the story. And those last 2 sound negative, but I promise they're not. The reason as authors as to why we need to be ingesting media and books, no matter how different they are from what we normally write, because these 2 covers couldn't be more different, like, but it's still important because that's how we train our media literacy. That's how we learn what we like, what we don't like, what works, what doesn't work, and that's where we learn to push the envelope and really find our style and find what works for us. You know, not just finding what I like, but also finding the words to describe what I didn't like and why. Why didn't I think it worked? And those moments are just as important as finding things that we do like. So there we are. We did it. I'm so tired. I'm so tired, but I am glad that I did this. One, it got me in the mood for like spooky season, even though it's still 80 degrees. Get with it, California. It's October. We have had a couple overcast days, just a couple, but yeah, it did get me in the spooky mood. It got me excited to write, and it got me really kind of chewing on the motivations of my characters, which I didn't expect. I kind of expected more to be inspired by the flowery language and the romance, which I very much was. I talked a lot about capital R romance in this vlog, and with Dracula and Frankenstein specifically, there's a lot of capital R romance. I don't mean, when I say capital R romance, I don't mean like romantic romance. I mean romantic language. I mean throwing yourself on the ground in agony because someone you loved has died. You know, that's romance. It's the genre, the essence, the over-the-topness of it all. The loving with your whole heart everything and everyone, or hating them with your very existence. That kind of romance. And I love that style of writing. I do. Not maybe for an 18-hour book this big. I love the beautiful flowery language of how devoted Jonathan is to Mina. I love that. I eat it up, and I did find that inspiring. And honestly, going back to Invisible Man and committing with the bit, I do think that it feels like it's kind of given me leeway to be a little bit more syrupy and romantic in my books. Because I write romance. I don't want to just write romance forever, but right now I'm writing romance and adventure and magic. And so leaning into the more syrupy, romantic, dramatic side of things could be really fun. And so I'm excited to see where those like inspirational juices take me. Really working at the kinks of like my character motivations, because that's why these books stand up to the test of time. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I want to make sure I get all my thoughts in here. The reason why these books stand up to the test of time is because we read them and the motivation still makes sense. The characters could be someone that we meet in our everyday life, not literally, but the archetypes and the decisions that they make and the way that they talk and the story beats about them are timeless in a way. And so, and I find that really inspiring, that there are just stories that transcend time, you know? And yes, I am an idiot, and I am not good at reading classic literature, and even I found inspiration and moving things in these novels and not just a bunch of word soup. Although Dracula did make my brain go to soup. Anyway, even then I still found things to enjoy and to really chew on and to really dissect. So I'm excited to take these things with me, and I'm excited that I finally read these books. Dracula I've tried to read 4 or 5 separate times. Frankenstein I pretended to read in high school. Sorry, Mr. Mason. And I never considered reading The Invisible Man. It just never crossed my mind. It never intrigued me. And the second my partner said, oh, The Invisible Man, I was like, oh, you're so right. So, yeah, I'm glad I did this. I want to continue to do this. I do want to continue to read classic literature, and not just classic literature in the sense of like old literature, but even like new age classics. I want to read things that are hard for me to read in order to challenge and better myself as an author. So if you guys have any suggestions, we're doing themes. If you have any Christmas ones, I might do A Tale of Two Cities. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not doing that. Maybe A Christmas Carol if you're lucky. I might read A Christmas Carol. But yeah, if you have any suggestions, if you have any themes, if there's anything else you want me to read and just melt my brain with, put it down below, you know? And if you're a fellow author, if you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. The entire month of November, I'm going to be vlogging my NaNoWriMo. So we're gonna make a lot of headway with my next novel. So if you made it this far, thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. I know this was all over the place, but oh man, reading these things were hard. So drop a like for my suffering. Drop a subscribe so you can hang out with me as I write my next novel next month. And if this is the first and last time I'm seeing you, don't you worry. There are no hard feelings. The door will always be open if you choose to come back. So, you know, thanks for hanging out. Okay, bye.